Tonight on Up to Speed with Tripp Simpson, Tim Walz and JD Vance go at it head to head. All that and more on episode number 90 of Up to Speed with Tripp Simpson.
The following program is rated TV MAL. It contains strong language and is intended only for mature audience.
Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Art. A to the RT. So many niggas want beef, go to Arby's. Not too many rappers in this game that can stop me feeling cocky. Cause my flow hella stocky. Yeah, and I does this shit. Flow sick, something like when your two cousins kiss. Ill. And y'all niggas know who run this shit. They out of breath. Tell the coach I need 100 bricks. Let me cook them in the oven quick. Take them out when these percussions kick. Yeah, and it was never really a discussion, kids. Trade you to another team like the Russians did. Whoa, what a bitches that be sucking dick. Hit me up, you know I love that shit. Yeah, and it's all go when I touch that bitch. Pass it to me, watch me clutch that shit. Swish, swish.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Up to Speed with Tripp Simpson. I am your host, Tripp Simpson, in the building.
The first of his name, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms and Protector of the Realm.
That's right. And before we get this live stream started tonight, first and foremost, you know, we got to handle business. Let's get it.
Family moving up in the business. I know you're going to look after family.
What family you talking about, Ice?
Fuck, I look invisible, nigga.
That's right. I am not invisible. So if you're watching live on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you are watching live on Facebook, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Also, if you're watching live on Instagram, hit that like button, hit that share button. No matter what platform that you're watching on tonight, do not forget to comment in the live chat below. Let's get it. Now, I can see right here off the break, Twitter is giving me some problems. So hold on. Give me a second, ladies and gentlemen. Let me try to add Twitter again. All right, give me a second. All right, let's see if Twitter is gonna come through. Hold on. Yeah, Twitter's still tripping. I don't know what's going on. Anyways, let's get on with the show. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we are about a half an hour away from the first and likely only 2024 vice presidential debate. And let me ask y'all something real quick. Do y'all really think that Tim Walz is going to beat Jim Vance? You can't be serious. A lot of people telling me that JD Vance isn't smart enough to go against Tim Walz. I don't know what the hell you people have been watching for the past few months, but nothing could be further from the truth. In my humble opinion, Kamala is already cooked. She's good. I mean, Walz is going to get cooked tonight, but it doesn't even matter because Kamala's already cooked. And if things go the way I expect them to go, JD Vance is going to put the final nail in the Walz-Harris campaign coffin. Now, Walz has already admitted that he's basically scared to do the debate. And if that's true, I think this will be a walk in the park for JD Vance. Honestly, I'm starting to think that the Democrats have already accepted their fate in this election. The campaign thus far has been a complete disaster since day one. And honestly, I don't understand why they even marched these two clowns out in front of the American people, rather than any other reason to take the fall for Joe Biden. I don't see any other reason why they would bring them out. I really don't. Shout out to my man Angry Man. I was watching Angry Man's stream the other day, and he was saying that the Dems probably just ran Kamala so they could kill two birds with one stone. One, to keep their real candidate from getting demolished by Trump, and two, because Kamala was only the only candidate that could take the hundreds of millions of dollars that Biden had already raised prior to dropping out. So all of that money would have gotten wasted if they hadn't gone with Kamala Harris. I mean, honestly, this woman can't answer basic questions. I mean, it's extremely cringe just to watch her talk. Then to top it off, she can't even remember her own lies. She can't even remember her own lies. Now I want y'all to check this out. This is Kamala Harris on the All the Smoke podcast the other day with Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson. All right, I want to play this little video for y'all real quick. All right, here we go. Here's Kamala.
So you want to know that part?
Give me that, yeah.
Look, from the time that the president called me and told me he wasn't running, I mean, it just like everything was in speedy motion. And I was not sleeping so well. And that one morning, I had, I don't know, a few hours sleep, and I like to sleep. I just got up, and so I just went out and got a pork roast and started marinating.
See, time to work. Get to your happy place.
And my family happened to be in town, so they were very happy about the whole situation. But I just got up and started, everybody's asleep, I just got up and started cooking.
Set your mind easy.
Yeah.
Last question.
So she said everybody was asleep, and she just got up and started cooking when she got the call from Joe Biden. That's what she said. All right? Now, let's go to her interview from CNN just a month prior, from August 29th, where she describes the first call she got from Biden on this particular interview. All right? Let's do that. All right. So let's go to that CNN interview. Here we go. Boom. Right here. Bam. All right. Check this out.
My family was staying with us, and including my baby nieces. And we had just had pancakes and, Auntie, can I have more bacon? Yes, I'll make you more bacon. And then we were sitting down to do a puzzle.
Now y'all just heard that, right? On the clip from the other day, she said everyone was sleeping, she just got up and started cooking. Now everyone's awake and she's doing puzzles with her nieces. Let's go, man. Let's get it.
And the phone rang and it was Joe Biden.
Let's play that one more time.
Had just had pancakes and, Auntie, can I have more bacon? Yes, I'll make you more bacon. And then we were sitting down to do a puzzle. And the phone rang and it was Joe Biden.
Liar, liar, pants on goddamn fire. Liar, liar, pants on fire. What do you people see in this incompetent woman? Oh yeah, that's right. Anybody but Trump. The absolute dumbest political stance ever. Look where that shit has gotten us. Record inflation, a non-existent border, no police, out of control crime in major cities, and now a whole goddamn world war.
The North remembers.
A whole world war. And the crazy part is that Trump, along with those of us with some type of intelligence about politics, warned you idiots about this. World War III is going down right now, and we got Mr. Magoo and goddamn Scary Spice making the final decisions. Fam, I never thought I would see a president handle a natural disaster worse than George Bush handled Katrina. But I stand corrected. As far as we know, hundreds of people are dead and missing. Entire cities are completely destroyed and underwater. And where's the executive branch? Biden's hiding out at the beach, and Kamala's getting lit fundraising in Las Vegas. I mean, at what point do you put the country first? At what point? At what point does the country come first? It's funny though, because guess where Trump was at? Guess where Trump was at the last 2 days? Let's go. Guess where Trump was at? Here we go. Let's get it.
Well, thank you very much. Hurricane Helene turned out to be a big one, like just about the biggest that anyone's seen. I spoke with all of the relief people, all of the people that do this for a living and do this at least to help, and they said they've never seen one this bad. Valdosta has been ravaged. The town is very, very badly hurting, and many thousands are without power. They're running low on food and fuel. We brought a lot of it down with us. As you know, our country is in the final weeks of a hard-fought national election. But in a time like this, when a crisis hits, when our fellow citizens cry out in need, none of that matters. We're not talking about politics now. We have to all get together and get this solved. We need a lot of help. They have to have a lot of help down here. We look out for one another. We pull together. We pitch in. We persevere, and we pull it through. That is really the American spirit. That's what made America originally great.
Thank you, Mr. President, for coming and helping to put a spotlight on this city, this state, and this region that has lost so much. Thank you. May God bless you, Mr. President.
So there we have it. There we have it. Say what you want about Trump. Say what you want about Trump, but he dropped everything to be where he's needed to be. He put down his own money and has also started crowdfunding campaigns to help these people. But I guess since there weren't enough Ukrainians in North Carolina and in Georgia, Biden and Harris decided not to send any resources. I'm telling y'all, these people are a disaster. And everyone sees it except black women and black baby boomers. Black men under 50 at this point support Trump at over 25%. And I honestly think the number is higher. See, a lot of guys won't speak up and tell how they really feel for fear of backlash. But I'm telling you, in real life, that number is probably closer to 40 to 45%. Easy. Easy. Now, real quick, here's another alarming issue for the Harris campaign. I want to show y'all this real quick. And shout out to the Black Conservative Perspective watching this video off his page. So shout out to him. Go subscribe to his channel. Let's check this out.
Was in office, we were doing good, absolutely good. You know, Kamala, she's already in office and ain't done. And, you know, I mean, there was more work too. So we were able to afford things.
What are the issues that move you towards Trump and move you and your community towards Donald Trump?
Well, mainly is the transgender and also the abortion right.
And you would say most of your community is choosing Donald Trump because of that?
Yes. The majority, yes.
Trump's rehashing of his race-baiting rhetoric comes as a new NBC News, Telemundo, and CNBC poll shows that Harris has a 14-point lead over Trump among Latino voters, 54% to Trump's 40%. Yes, that's a big lead, but it's a shrinking one. Down from what might seem like a big lead, it's a shrinking one because President Biden had a 36-point lead in 2020, and Hillary Clinton had a 50-point lead in 2016. Why is that? Why is the Democratic share of the Latino vote shrinking?
And what I said to you when we asked the question was, Latinos want to be white. They want to be with the cool kids. They want to be, I'm asking Latinos all the time, and they just say, well, ese Donald Trump es tan buen negociante. He's such a good businessman. It's like, no, he's not. He had bankruptcies. But they don't want to be identified with all of those other immigrants that Donald Trump speaks so badly of, including me as a Mexican immigrant. So they're like, we'd rather.
You know what's crazy to me? The people in the video clearly stated why they wanted to go with Trump. They talked about the economy, and they talked about the transgenderism and stuff like that. They had clear points that they wanted to make about why. And her answer is because they want to be white. Look, MSNBC is a trash organization. So Latinos can't make their own political decisions without being accused of wanting to be white. So wanting a better country makes you want to be white. Maybe that's true because people say I want to be white because I'm conservative, which is retarded. These people must be stopped. Let's go.
Let's be with him. But those numbers, they could cost Kamala Harris the election. Everything that I've been saying that Latinos could push her over the top, these are the numbers that could also take her down. I.e., they believe that she is a communist, that she is a socialist. There are these memes going around with her dressed in a Mao Zedong suit with a cap that has a hammer and sickle. So that's what you're up against right now. And frankly, that's something that she has to address, not Governor Walz. She ultimately has to address this because these images that they have created are actually taking off.
That's the thing that's what I find so frightening.
Yeah, so I found it hilarious how.
So bam. So there we have it. This is a big deal. This is a big deal, people. The polls are showing Trump with 40% of the Latino vote. But we know good and well it's probably at least 10% higher, at least. And real quick, shout out to the Latino community. Shout out to y'all. Shout out to the Latino community for having some goddamn common sense. They clearly don't give a shit about all the emotional hoopla that the media has built around Trump. Unlike black folks who only care about the right to delete their own children, minimum wage, and helping drug dealers from the 90s get out of prison in the guise of prison reform. I swear to God, that's all we care about. That's all we care about. Getting old drug dealers out of prison, minimum wage, and deletion of our own kids. There are no three topics in the black community that trump, no pun intended, those things. And y'all wonder why we in the shape we're in. But back to the topic. The Latino vote is not the only demographic drastically slipping away from the Democrats. As I said earlier, black men under the age of 50 are leaving the Democrat Party in droves. However, working men are also leaving the Democratic Party. Let's get to that. All right, give me a second. Here we go.
off the screen should set off sirens. All right, this is union households. This is a Democratic margin in presidential election. It ain't what it used to be. You know, you go back to 1992, Bill Clinton won that union vote by 30 points.
Real quick, Guns and Cafe on YouTube has a great point. He says a lot of Latinos have suffered socialism/communism. They've heard what Kamala is selling before. That is a fact. That is a fact. A lot of these Latinos are coming from third world countries where they're ran by dictators. So they can see the type of shit that Kamala and them are pulling. This is why, even though I do think that they're pouring in illegal migrants into the country to try to change the voting dynamics, I think that ultimately, once these migrants begin to become legal and start participating in American society, they're going to turn their back on the Democratic Party. Because they're going to be more conservative by nature, because they're coming from a place that was basically communist. So why would they want to come here and go through the same thing? They're not stupid. They see what's going on. Now, I'm not saying I'm for mass illegal immigration, because I'm not. They need to build a wall. But what I'm saying is I don't think ultimately the Democrats' plan is going to work for them at all. But anyway, let's get back to it.
Hillary Clinton only won it by 12 points back in 2016. That was the lowest mark for a Democrat since 1984, Mondale versus Reagan. But look at where Kamala Harris is today. She's only leading by 9 points. That would be the worst Democratic performance in a generation. 10 points off the mark of Joe Biden, who of course won 4 years ago, who was sort of that union guy, Union Joe, right? Won it by 19 points. She's 10 points off his mark, and the worst in a generation if this, in fact, holds, Sarah.
It is interesting to note that the difference between this, and Biden still won.
Still won.
But those numbers are significantly down. All right, talk to me about manual labor, those folks.
So there we have it. The union members have made a big shift against the Democratic Party. All right, so that's major. Here we go.
Who went to trade schools.
Yeah, those folks who use their hands. I think a lot of people oftentimes conflate the union vote with those who use their hands. Mike Rowe, of course, has been arguing more people should go to trade schools. More people should get a vocational degree. Look at this margin. This, to me, oh boy, does this tell you about the state of our politics now versus back in the early 1990s. Margin among vocational and trade school grads in pre-election polling. Bill Clinton was leading that vote over George H.W. Bush by 7 points. Look at where Donald Trump is today over Kamala Harris, a 31-point advantage. When I think people think of the working class, they think of people who use their hands, and we know that Donald Trump has been going after that vote, and he is in a very, very strong position, more so perhaps than any other bloc. The folks who go to trade school, vocational school, that has moved from being a core Democratic group to now being a core group of Donald Trump's massive amount of support among the working class.
So there we have it. There we have it. Moral of the story is that the men, the real men, are waking up. And this is going to be a huge problem for Kamala Harris. And tonight, if J.D. Vance has a decent performance, it's curtains. It's curtains. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and head on over to CBS. We're going to head on over to CBS, and because the debate will be on in about 5-6 minutes. All right, so we're going to head on over to CBS and get ready for that. Let's do it.
Hey, yo, baby, where you at?
All right, so it's saying 11 minutes. Fine. Okay. But yeah, and ladies and gentlemen, I do want to let you guys know that we are going to be taking calls tonight. So the link will be in the description. If you guys want to call in and give your thoughts on the debate, the lines will be open, and we're going to get to it. We're going to get to it. There we go. There we go. All right, so let's see what they're saying.
That he supports an expanded child tax credit, expanded child care options for families beyond preschool and daycare. But that grandparents' comment certainly striking a chord, saying aunts and uncles should be helping out more too, Cecilia.
Yeah, Jolene, I was really struck by this next one on housing. A CBS News poll found that half of Americans aged 30 to 64, they are not confident that they will ever reach the American dream of being able to own a home. What are the campaigns promising to change that?
Cecilia, look, you've got the Fed cutting interest rates last month, right? And you've got more Americans who want to get back into the housing market. So it's kind of encouraging to see. But Vice President Harris has now proposed a $25,000 down payment assistance program for certain first-time home buyers. She's also proposing a tax incentive for builders of starter homes, which are in short supply, to help tackle this supply problem, which has basically plagued our country for more than a decade and a half now. So this depends, again, on congressional approval. It depends on.
Here we go. And like they're already padding the step. Like, make no mistake about it. Kamala Harris's economic plan is trash, bro. It's trash. The main reason why her economic plan is trash is because it doesn't help anybody up front. For instance, let's go into the whole, this whole idea about the $50,000 tax credit for small businesses, right? That's not going to be beneficial to anyone who is starting a small business, because when you're starting a small business, you need the capital up front. In order to benefit from a $50,000 tax break, you need to exceed $50,000 in profit. And most small businesses do not make that much money in the first year. So don't think, okay, I'm about to open up my own barbershop, right? And you're gonna file your taxes and the IRS is gonna give you $50,000 tax return. That's not how that works. Not with a business. That's not how that works with a business. So whether it's $5,000 or $50,000, first of all, you have to have an operable, profitable business to benefit from such a policy. And then the whole $25,000 nonsense with the housing credit. So first and foremost, what that's going to do is that's just going to drive interest rates through the roof, and it's going to make the availability for homes even more, it's going to be even more tight. It's going to be like it was in 2020, except the interest rates are going to be higher. Because everybody and their mama is going to be out here trying to get a house. Remember in 2020 when the virus hit, right? In 2020 when the virus hit, it was hard as shit to get a house. Everybody was trying to get a house left and right. The bidding wars on houses in 2020 were crazy. Like $300,000 houses were going for like 4.5, almost 5, because that's how much people were overbidding each other. So can you imagine with everybody running around here trying to get that $25,000 tax credit for buying a house? That shit's gonna be crazy. That's just gonna be crazy. Now, they may be able to keep interest rates low, maybe, but at the same time, it's still gonna be hard as shit to find out an affordable house because everybody's gonna be outbidding each other because everybody's gonna want the house. There aren't gonna be enough houses on the market, which is crazy. So, and she also states the same thing. She also contradicts herself, right? Because she says there aren't enough housing, there isn't enough affordable housing on the market, so she wants to build 3 million homes. So you're gonna build 3 million homes, right? Which is gonna take you 2-3 years to build 3 million homes. But while you're building these homes, you want to give people a $25,000 tax credit and saturate the market. I mean, it's simple math, people. It's simple math. But let's get back. Let's see what they're talking about.
The type of implementation, and former President Trump.
And so there is some indication that approach, along with interest rates coming down, along with gas prices coming down, is starting to move the needle a little bit. Our polling shows that while Trump does still have an advantage on that big issue of the economy, that she's starting to inch closer and closer.
All right, Nancy, thank you. Guys, we are just minutes away from the vice presidential debate. You are watching CBS News. Stay with us.
All right, real quick. What we're gonna do is we're gonna bring Mezzy on in. Hold on, let me get this audio straight real quick before I do that. Mezzy, what's good? What's good? What's good?
What's going on? What's happening, man?
Ain't too much, man. We about to get this shit popping. What's going on?
Man, I'm ready for this debate. See, here's the thing about this debate, right? So for me, it's like the vice president is supposed to mirror and not just mirror, and champion what the president or whoever the running candidate is, their ideas, and what they want for the American people, right? So if the vice president right now has nothing to put on the table, just like Kamala Harris has, hey, this is going to be a slaughter. This is going to be a straight slaughter.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much what I'm predicting at this point. I don't see how this goes well for Kamala Harris. I mean, excuse me, not Kamala Harris. I don't see how this goes well for Tim Walz. He's already stated that he was nervous about the debate. Now, I don't know if that was some type of,
because he has nothing to go on.
Maybe he was trying to hit him with the Jedi mind trick or some type of psychological tactic to, throw him off or something. But that's what he stated.
Bruh. Yeah. Well, apparently, I hope it doesn't work on himself, because you have no information to really go on. Like, what are you really going to say? Like, what is this opportunity economy that she's championing? Now, I want to hear what he's going to say about that. I would just let him talk. Just let him talk.
Yeah, I think he's gonna talk himself. I don't know. We'll see. I'm really interested to see what these people are gonna say. Like,
I know I am,
because it's been a complete mess up until this point.
And if you ever listen to JD Vance talk, he sounds very, very intelligent. You know what I mean? Like he connects the dots as he's the logic in what you're saying, and he'll rebut that after you finish talking. Like, he's very logical in what he's saying. So if he's more calm, and more poised than Trump was at the last debate, I mean,
I mean, Vance normally is. Like, I watch a lot of his interviews. He completely destroys everyone that tries to go at him on these interviews.
Exactly.
Like, somebody DM'd me earlier, talking about, are you crazy? Vance is a tool. Walz is going to wipe the floor with him. Hold on, let's see what they say. They back. Hold on.
File from the actual debate location. Ed, we've seen major news the day of a debate before, and we're sure getting it today.
Yeah, John, you remember back in 2016 when you hosted the Republican presidential primary debate, and that morning Antonin Scalia died, and suddenly you had to rip up all the questions and focus on the future of the Supreme Court, which probably hadn't been a top-of-mind concern. Well, look at what's happened in the last few days. It's only October 1, but in essence, we've had some surprises. The intensification of the situation in the Middle East, major storms ravaging the Southeast that are now going to cause some debate over spending. And
are they really going to act like World War III is literally not getting kicked off right now? Are they just going to downplay that shit? I can't hear you, bro. You're muted.
I said Iran just attacked Israel, so it's coming. It's coming.
Right. I mean,
like,
this is crazy. They downplay the storm. Like, they remember when Katrina happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
When Katrina happened, there was way more coverage. Like, I feel like they're barely even talking about North Carolina or Georgia. In a significant portion of both states is completely underwater.
Especially North Carolina. Like, some towns just completely cut off from everything. Like, they have no water, no electricity, no gas, nothing. I'm like, dude, and it's not on the news at all. Like, there's no national emergency at nothing. I mean, these people are. I don't know how do these people like vote for this administration? Like, I don't understand.
Man, I don't know, man. I don't know. All right, hold on. Let me refresh my screen real quick. Give me a second.
Maybe I missed something. I mean, he gave an update on the weather happening down south, but he didn't seem too coherent with his answers, and he didn't seem like he was kind of believable what he was saying.
You talking about the Georgia, the governor?
No, the president, when his last press conference about the hurricane and everything.
Oh, I didn't even see it. I didn't even see it.
Oh, good. It was quick.
Yeah, I didn't even see that, Joe, man.
You didn't miss nothing.
That's crazy. All right, let me get this shit back on the screen. I had to refresh my my shit real quick.
Mm-hmm.
All right, here we go.
climate change, all of them are
memes that are going to be from this debate is going to be insane.
Oh yeah. real quick, let me remind everybody out there on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, hit the like button, hit the share button. Let's get this video offered to the algorithm, especially if you're on YouTube right now. Hit that like button, hit that share button. Same thing on Facebook. Also, if you're feeling generous, ladies and gentlemen, you can also hit that super chat. The information is at the top of the screen, or you can hit that Cash App. Let's get it.
Guess what I found out about Kamala Harris?
What about it?
Everybody loves Michael Jackson, right? So guess who was the prosecutor for Michael Jackson's case?
Oh yeah. I went over that.
Okay.
A couple days ago for sure. All right, let's get right started. Let's get it.
President of the United States.
This is a CBS News special, live from CBS News headquarters in New York. America Decides, the vice presidential debate.
Good evening, I'm Nora O'Donnell, and thank you for joining us for tonight's CBS News vice presidential debate. We want to welcome our viewers on CBS, on other networks here in the U.S. and around the world. We have a consequential night ahead, and our focus is the issues that matter to you, the voter. Let's introduce the candidates. Minnesota's Democratic Governor Tim Walz and Ohio's Republican Senator J.D. Vance, tonight meeting for the first time.
I'm Margaret Brennan. In order to have a thoughtful and civil debate, these are the rules that both campaigns have agreed to. Questions will be directed at one candidate who will have 2 minutes to respond. The other candidate will be allowed 2 minutes for rebuttal. Then each candidate will get another minute to make further points, with an additional 1 minute each at the discretion of the moderator. The primary role of the moderators is to facilitate the debate between the candidates, enforce the rules, and provide the candidates with the opportunity to fact-check claims made by each other.
CBS News reserves the right to mute the candidates' microphones to maintain decorum. We have not shared the questions or topics with the campaigns. The stage is set. Governor, Senator, thank you for joining us. Let's get started. Tonight, our country is facing several unfolding crises. The Middle East is on the brink of war. Americans are suffering from the catastrophic impact of Hurricane Helene. And now a labor strike as 25,000 dock workers from Maine to Texas are picketing. We're going to begin tonight with the Middle East. Margaret.
Thank you, Nora. Earlier today, Iran launched its largest attack yet on Israel, but that attack failed, thanks to joint U.S. and Israeli defensive action. President Biden has deployed more than 40,000 U.S. military personnel and assets to that region over the past year to try to prevent a regional war. Iran is weakened, but the U.S. still considers it the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world, and it has drastically reduced the time it would take to develop a nuclear weapon. It is down now to 1 or 2 weeks' time. Governor Walz, if you were the final voice in the Situation Room, would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran? You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you. And thank you for those joining at home tonight. Let's keep in mind where this started. October 7th, Hamas terrorists massacred over 1,400 Israelis and took prisoners. Israel's ability to be able to defend itself is absolutely fundamental. Getting its hostages back is fundamental, and ending the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. But the expansion of Israel and its proxies is an absolute fundamental necessity for the United States to have the steady leadership there. You saw it experienced today, where along with our Israeli partners and our coalition, able to stop the incoming attack. But what's fundamental here is that steady leadership is going to matter. It's clear, and the world saw it on that debate stage a few weeks ago, a nearly 80-year-old Donald Trump talking about crowd sizes is not what we need in this moment. But it's not just that. It's those that were closest to Donald Trump that understand how dangerous he is when the world is this dangerous. His chief of staff, John Kelly, said that he was the most flawed human being he'd ever met. And both of his secretaries of defense and his national security advisors said he should be nowhere near the White House. Now, the person closest to them, Donald Trump, said he's unfit for the highest office. That was Senator Vance. What we've seen out of Vice President Harris is we've seen steady leadership. We've seen a calmness that is able to draw on the coalitions to bring them together, understanding that our allies matter. When our allies see Donald Trump turn towards Vladimir Putin, turn towards North Korea, when we start to see that type of fickleness around holding the coalitions together, we will stay committed. And as the vice president said today we will protect our forces and our allied forces, and there will be consequences.
Governor, your time is up. Senator Vance, the same question. Would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran? You have 2 minutes.
So, Margaret, I want to answer the question. First of all, thanks, Governor. Thanks to CBS for hosting the debate. And thanks, most importantly, to the American people who are watching this evening and caring enough about this country to pay attention to this vice presidential debate. I want to answer the question, but I want to actually give an introduction to myself a little bit because I recognize a lot of Americans don't know who either one of us are. I was raised in a working class family. My mother required food assistance for periods of her life. My grandmother required Social Security help to raise me. And she raised me in part because my own mother struggled with addiction for a big chunk of my early life. I went to college on the GI Bill after I enlisted in the Marine Corps and served in Iraq. And so I stand here asking to be your vice president with extraordinary gratitude for this country, for the American dream that made it possible for me to live my dreams. And most importantly, I know that a lot of you are worried about the chaos in the world and the feeling that the American dream is unattainable. I want to try to convince you tonight over the next 90 minutes that if we get better leadership in the White House, if we get Donald Trump back in the White House, the American dream is going to be attainable once again. Now, to answer this particular question, we have to remember that as much as Governor Walz just accused Donald Trump of being an agent of chaos, Donald Trump actually delivered stability in the world, and he did it by establishing effective deterrence. People were afraid of stepping out of line. Iran, which launched this attack, has received over $100 billion in unfrozen assets thanks to the Kamala Harris administration. What do they use that money for? They use it to buy weapons that they're now launching against our allies, and God forbid, potentially launching against the United States as well. Donald Trump recognized that for people to fear the United States, you needed peace through strength. They needed to recognize that if they got out of line, the United States global leadership would put stability and peace back in the world. Now, you asked about a preemptive strike, Margaret, and I want to answer the question. Look,
God, he murdered that question. He murdered it. He murdered it.
It is up to Israel what they think they need to do to keep their country safe, and we should support our allies wherever they are when they're fighting the bad guys. I think that's the right approach to take with the Israel question.
Damn, I like that. It's up to Israel to keep itself safe.
Right. Not us.
We'll support them from the background. That's the kind of answer that we need.
Thank you, Senator. Governor Walz, do you care to respond to any of the allegations?
Well, look, Donald Trump was in office. We'll sometimes hear a revisionist history, but when Donald Trump was in office, it was Donald Trump who we had a coalition of nations that had boxed Iran's nuclear program in, the inability to advance it. Donald Trump pulled that program and put nothing else in its place. So Iran is closer to a nuclear weapon than they were before because of Donald Trump's fickle leadership. And when Iran shot down an American aircraft in international airspace, Donald Trump tweeted, because that's the standard diplomacy of Donald Trump. And when Iranian missiles did fall near U.S. troops and they received traumatic brain injuries,
Donald Trump, all they do is blame Trump. That has nothing to do with nothing, bro.
Nothing at all.
This shit happened on y'all's watch.
What are you talking about Donald Trump?
That shit's crazy. Let's go.
Donald Trump wrote it off as headaches. Look, our allies understand that Donald Trump is fickle. He will go to whoever has the most flattery or where it makes sense to him. Steady leadership like you witnessed today, like you witnessed in April. Both Iranian attacks were repelled. Our coalition is strong, and we need the steady leadership that Kamala Harris is providing.
Senator Vance, the U.S. did have a diplomatic deal with Iran to temporarily pause parts of its nuclear program, and President Trump did exit that deal. He recently said, just 5 days ago, the U.S. must now make a diplomatic deal with Iran because the consequences are impossible. Did he make a mistake? You have 1 minute.
Well, first of all, Margaret, diplomacy is not a dirty word, but I think that's something that Governor Walz just said is quite extraordinary. You yourself just said Iran is as close to a nuclear weapon today as they have ever been. And Governor Walz, you blame Donald Trump, who has been the vice president for the last 3.5 years. And the answer is your running mate, not mine. Donald Trump consistently made the world more secure. Now, we talk about what the sequence of events that led us to where we are right now, and you can't ignore October the 7th, which I appreciate Governor Walz bringing up. But when did Iran and Hamas and their proxies attack Israel? It was during the administration of Kamala Harris. So Governor Walz can criticize Donald Trump's tweets, but effective, smart diplomacy and peace through strength is how you bring stability back to a very broken world. Donald Trump has already done it once before. Ask yourself at home, when was the last time, I'm 40 years old, when was the last time that an American president didn't have a major conflict break out? The only answer is during the 4 years that Donald Trump was president.
Let's turn now to Hurricane Helene. The storm could become one of the deadliest on record. More than 160 people are dead and hundreds more are missing. Scientists say climate change makes these hurricanes larger, stronger, and more deadly because of the historic rainfall. Senator Vance, according to CBS News polling, 7 in 10 Americans and more than 60% of Republicans under the age of 45 favor the U.S. taking steps to try and reduce climate change. Senator, what responsibility would the Trump administration have to try and reduce the impact of climate change? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Sure. So first of all, let's start with the hurricane, because it's an unbelievable, unspeakable human tragedy. I just saw today, actually, a photograph of 2 grandparents on a roof with a 6-year-old child, and it was the last photograph ever taken of them because the roof collapsed and those innocent people lost their lives. And I'm sure Governor Walz joins me in saying our hearts go out to those innocent people, our prayers go out to them, and we want as robust and aggressive as a federal response as we can get to save as many lives as possible, and then, of course, afterwards, to help the people in those communities rebuild. I mean, these are communities that I love. Some of them I know very personally in Appalachia, all across the Southeast. They need their government to do their job. And I commit that when Donald Trump is president again, the government will put the citizens of this country first when they suffer from a disaster. Now, Nora, you asked about climate change. I think this is a very important issue. Look, a lot of people are justifiably worried about all these crazy weather patterns. I think it's important for us, first of all, to say, Donald Trump and I support clean air, clean water. We want the environment to be cleaner and safer. But one of the things that I've noticed some of our Democratic friends talking a lot about is a concern about carbon emissions, this idea that carbon emissions drives all of the climate change. Well, let's just say that's true, just for the sake of argument, so we're not arguing about weird science. Let's just say that's true. Well, if you believe that, what would you want to do? The answer is that you'd want to reshore as much American manufacturing as possible, and you'd want to produce as much energy as possible in the United States of America, because we're the cleanest economy in the entire world. What have Kamala Harris's policies actually led to? More energy production in China, more manufacturing overseas, more doing business in some of the dirtiest parts of the entire world. And when I say that, I mean the amount of carbon emissions they're doing per unit of economic output. So if we actually care about getting cleaner air and cleaner water, the best thing to do is to double down and invest in American workers and the American people. And unfortunately, Kamala Harris has done exactly the opposite.
Governor Walz, you have 2 minutes to respond.
Well, we got close to an agreement because all those things are happening. Look, first of all, it is a horrific tragedy with this hurricane. And my heart goes out to the folks that are down there in contact with the governors. I serve as co-chair of the Council of Governors as we work together on these emergency managements. Governors know no partisanship. They work together. So all of the governors and the emergency responders are on the ground. Those happen on the front end. The federal government comes in, makes sure they're there so that we recover. But we're still in that phase where we need to make sure that they're staying there, staying focused. Now, look, coming back to the climate change, there's no doubt this thing roared onto the scene faster and stronger than anything we've seen. Senator Vance has said that there's a climate problem in the past. Donald Trump called it a hoax and then joked that these things would make more beachfront property to be able to invest in. What we've seen out of the Harris administration now, the Biden-Harris administration, is we've seen this investment. We've seen massive investments, the biggest in global history that we've seen in the Inflation Reduction Act, has created jobs all across the country. 2,000 in Jeffersonville, Ohio, taking the EV technology that we invented and making it here. 200,000 jobs across the country. The largest solar manufacturing plant in North America sits in Minnesota. But my farmers know climate change is real. They've seen 500-year droughts, 500-year floods back to back. But what they're doing is adapting, and this is allowed.
Hold up. They've seen 500-year droughts and 500, what? That's 1,000 years, bro. Come on.
Of them to tell me, look, I harvest corn, I harvest soybean, and I harvest wind. We are producing more natural gas and more oil at any time than we ever have. We're also producing more clean energy. So the solution for us is to continue to move forward, that climate change is real. Reducing our impact is absolutely critical, but this is not a false choice. You can do that at the same time you're creating the jobs that we're seeing all across the country. That's exactly what this administration has done. We are seeing us becoming an energy superpower for the future, not just the current. And that's what absolutely makes sense. And then we start thinking about how do we mitigate these disasters.
Thank you. Senator, I want to give you an opportunity to respond there. The governor mentioned that President Trump has called climate change a hoax. Do you agree?
Well, look, what the president has said is that if the Democrats, in particular Kamala Harris and her leadership, if they really believe that climate change is serious, what they would be doing is more manufacturing and more energy production in the United States of America, and that's not what they're doing. So clearly, Kamala Harris herself doesn't believe her own rhetoric on this. If she did, she would actually agree with Donald Trump's energy policies. Now, something Governor Walz said I think is important to touch upon, because when we talk about clean energy, I think that's a slogan that often the Democrats will use here. I'm talking, of course, about the Democratic leadership. And the real issue is that if you're spending hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars of American taxpayer money on solar panels that are made in China, number one, you're going to make the economy dirtier. We should be making more of those solar panels here in the United States of America. Some of them are, Tim, but a lot of them are being made overseas in China, especially the components that go into those solar panels. So if you really want to make the environment cleaner, you've got to invest in more energy production. We haven't built a nuclear facility, I think, one in the past 40 years.
Senator.
Natural gas, we got to invest more in it. Kamala Harris has done the opposite. That's raised energy prices and also meant that we're doing
Senator,
worse by the climate.
your time is up. Governor, would you like to respond?
Well, look, we're producing more natural gas than we ever have. There's no moratorium on that. We're producing more oil. But the folks know, and like I said, again, these are not liberal folks. These are not folks that are Green New Deal folks. These are farmers that have been drought one year, massive flooding the next year. They understand that it makes sense. Look, our number one export cannot be topsoil from erosion from these massive storms. We saw it in Minnesota this summer. And thinking about how do we respond to that, we're thinking ahead on this. And what Kamala Harris has been able to do in Minnesota, we're starting to weatherproof some of these things. The infrastructure law that was passed allows us to think about mitigation in the future. How do we make sure that we're protecting by burying our power lines? How do we make sure that we're protecting lakefronts and things that we're seeing more and more of? But to call it a hoax and to take the oil company executives to Mar-a-Lago, say, give me money for my campaign, and I'll let you do whatever you want. We can be smarter about that. And an all-above energy policy is exactly what she's doing, creating those jobs right here.
Governor, your time is up. The overwhelming consensus among scientists is that the Earth's climate is warming at an unprecedented rate. Margaret?
Thank you, Nora. We're going to turn now to immigration. The crisis at the U.S.-Mexico border consistently ranks as one of the top issues for American voters. Senator Vance, your campaign is pledging to carry out the largest mass deportation plan in American history and to use the U.S. military to do so. Could you be more specific about exactly how this will work? For example, would you deport parents who have entered the U.S. illegally and separate them from any of their children who were born on U.S. soil? You have 2 minutes.
So first of all, Margaret, before we talk about deportations, we have to stop the bleeding. We have a historic immigration crisis because Kamala Harris started and said that she wanted to undo all of Donald Trump's border policies. 94 executive orders suspending deportations, decriminalizing illegal aliens, massively increasing the asylum fraud that exists in our system. That has opened the floodgates. And what it's meant is that a lot of fentanyl is coming into our country. I had a mother who struggled with opioid addiction and has gotten clean. I don't want people who are struggling with addiction to be deprived of their second chance because Kamala Harris let in fentanyl into our communities at record levels. So you've got to stop the bleeding. You've got to re-implement Donald Trump's border policies, build the wall, re-implement deportations. And that gets me to your point, Margaret, about what do we actually do? So we've got 25 million illegal aliens who are here in the country. What do we do with them? I think the first thing that we do is we start with the criminal migrants. About 1 million of those people have committed some form of crime in addition to crossing the border illegally. I think you start with deportations on those folks. And then I think you make it harder for illegal aliens to undercut the wages of American workers. A lot of people will go home if they can't work for less than minimum wage in our own country. And by the way, that'll be really good for our workers who just want to earn a fair wage for doing a good day's work. And the final point, Margaret, is you asked about family separation. Right now in this country, Margaret, we have 320,000 children that the Department of Homeland Security has effectively lost. Some of them have been sex trafficked. Some of them hopefully are at homes with their families. Some of them have been used as drug trafficking mules. The real family separation policy in this country is unfortunately Kamala Harris's wide open southern border. And I'd ask my fellow Americans to remember when she came into office, she said she was going to do this. Real leadership would be saying, you know what, I screwed up. We're going to go back to Donald Trump's border policies. I wish that she would do that. It would be good for all of us.
Common sense.
Governor,
right.
Do you care to respond to any of those specific allegations, including that the vice president is, quote, letting in fentanyl and using kids as drug mules?
Yo, she's dog whistling to him. You see how she's coaching them? Yo, that's crazy.
On other things regarding children.
Why is he grabbing his ear like that also?
Right. Like you could hear the first couple
in that man's ear.
He's looking for answers.
His ear, bro. They're giving him answers, bro.
Yeah, that's the sign right there.
They're giving him answers.
It's not true, but I will say about the fentanyl, because this is a crisis of this, the opioid crisis. And the good news on this is the last 12 months saw the largest decrease in opioid deaths in our nation's history. 30% decrease.
Oh, yeah, somebody told
but
him
there's
that.
still more work to do. But let's go back to this on immigration. Kamala Harris was the Attorney General of the largest state, a border state in California. She's the only person in this race who prosecuted transnational gangs for human trafficking.
What does that have to do with the border?
But look, we all want to solve this. Most of us want to solve this, and that is the United States Congress. That's the Border Patrol agents. That's the Chamber of Commerce. That's most Americans out here. That's why we had the fairest and the toughest bill on immigration that this nation's seen. It was crafted by a conservative senator from Oklahoma, James Lankford. I know him. He's super conservative, but he's a man of principle, wants to get it done. Democrats and Republicans worked on this piece of legislation. The Border Patrol said, this is what we need in here. These are the experts. And the Chamber of Commerce and the Wall Street Journal said, pass this thing. Kamala Harris helped get there. 1,500 new border agents. Detection for drugs.
Well, they don't tell you that bills come with
immigrants that you're going to let in a day.
Adjudications on this, just what America wants.
Read that bit.
But as soon as I was getting ready to pass and actually tackle this, Donald Trump said no, told them to vote against it because it gives him a campaign issue. It gives him what would Donald Trump talk about if we actually did some of these things? And they need to be done by the legislature. You can't just do this through the executive.
About the other stuff in that bill.
Look, we have the options to do this. Donald Trump had 4 years. He had 4 years to do this. And he promised you, America, how easy it would be. I'll build you a big, beautiful wall, and Mexico will pay for it. Less than 2% of that wall got built, and Mexico didn't pay a dime. But here we are again, 9 years after he came down that escalator, dehumanizing people and telling them what he was going to do. As far as the deportation plan, at one point, Senator Vance said it was so unworkable to be laughable. So that's where we're at. Pass the bill, she'll sign it.
Governor, your time is up. Senator, the question was, will you separate parents from their children, even if their kids are U.S. citizens? You have 1 minute.
Margaret, my point is that we already have massive child separations thanks to Kamala Harris's open border. And I didn't accuse Kamala Harris of inviting drug mules. I said that she enabled the Mexican drug cartels to operate freely in this country. And we know that they use children as drug mules, and it is a disgrace, and it has to stop. Look, I think what Tim said just doesn't pass the smell test. For 3 years, Kamala Harris went out bragging that she was going to undo Donald Trump's border policy. She did exactly that. We had a record number of illegal crossings. We had a record number of fentanyl coming into our country. And now that she's running for president, or a few months before, she says that somehow she got religion and cared a lot about a piece of legislation. The only thing that she did when she became the vice president, when she became the appointed appointed border czar was to undo 94 Donald Trump executive actions that opened the border. This problem is leading to massive problems in the United States of America. Parents who can't afford health care, schools that are overwhelmed. It's got to stop, and it will when Donald Trump is president again.
Senator, your time is up. Governor,
thank you.
What about our CBS News polling, which does show that a majority of Americans, more than 50%, support mass deportations?
Look, we this issue with a bill that is necessary, but the issue on this is what happens when you don't want to solve it. You demonize it. And we saw.
Why are they acting like they can't just make executive orders and close the border?
They're in office now.
You're in office now. You can sign an Kamala Harris can sign an executive order right now. She can do it right now.
Mm-hmm.
As we speak, it can be done.
Saw this, and Senator Vance, and it surprises me on this, talking about and saying, I will create stories to bring attention to this. That vilified a large number of people who were here legally in the community of Springfield. The Republican governor said, it's not true, don't do it. There's consequences for this. There's consequences. We could come together. Senator Langford did it. We could come together and solve this if we didn't let Donald Trump continue to make it an issue. And the consequences in Springfield were the governor had to send state law enforcement to escort kindergartners to school. I believe Senator Vance wants to solve this, but by standing with Donald Trump and not working together to find a solution, it becomes a talking point. And when it becomes a talking point like this, we dehumanize and villainize other human beings.
Tim,
Governor, your time is up. Senator, I'll give you 1 minute, but let me just ask you the question first. The governor has made the point, and I think as a sitting lawmaker, you know that Congress controls the purse strings and any funding. So you have said repeatedly that Donald Trump would, through executive action, solve this. Do you disagree that Congress controls the purse strings and would need to support many of the changes that you would actually want to implement? You have 1 minute.
Look, Margaret, first of all, the gross majority of what we need to do at the southern border is just empowering law enforcement to do their job. I've been to the southern border more than our border czar, Kamala Harris, has been, and it's actually heartbreaking because the Border Patrol agents, they just want to be empowered to do their job. Of course, additional resources would help, but most of this is about the president and the vice president empowering our law enforcement to say, if you try to come across the border illegally, you've got to stay in Mexico, you've got to go back through proper channels. Now, Governor Walz brought up the community of Springfield, and he's very worried about the things that I've said in Springfield. Look, in Springfield, Ohio, and in communities all across this country, you've got schools that are overwhelmed. You've got hospitals that are overwhelmed. You have got housing that is totally unaffordable because we brought in millions of illegal immigrants to compete with Americans for scarce homes. The people that I'm most worried about in Springfield, Ohio, are the American citizens who have had their lives destroyed by Kamala Harris's open border. It is a disgrace, Tim. And I actually think, I agree with you. I think you want to solve this problem, but I don't think that Kamala Harris does.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, you have 1 minute to respond.
Yeah, well,
Beautiful.
For the bill, they helped craft it. They're the ones that supported it. That's because they know we need to do this. Look, this issue of continuing to bring this up, of not dealing with it, of blaming migrants for everything. On housing, we could talk a little bit about Wall Street speculators buying up housing and making them less affordable, but it becomes a blame. Look, this bill also gives the money necessary to adjudicate. I agree. It should not take 7 years for an asylum claim to be done. This bill gets it done in 90 days. Then you start to make a difference in this, and you start to adhere to what we know, American principles. I don't talk about my faith a lot, but Matthew 25:40 talks about to the least amongst us you do unto me. I think that's true of most Americans. They simply want order to it. This bill does it. It's funded. It's supported by the people who do it. And it lets us keep our dignity about how we treat other people.
Thank you, Governor. And just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants who have legal status, temporary protected status.
Well, Margaret, but
whoa, look how they keep doing. They doing him just like they did Trump. They're fact checking everything he says, and they're not fact checking anything Tim Walz is doing, bro. It's crazy. This is crazy.
Thank you.
Senator, we have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important because
we're going to turn now to the
debate,
economy. Thank
Margaret,
you.
the rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check. And since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on. So there's an application called the CBP One app, where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That is the facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by our own
Thank you, Senator, for
leadership.
describing the legal process. We have so
Kamala
much
Harris
to get
opened up
to,
that
Senator.
pathway.
Those
We have
laws
so
have
much-
been in the book since 1990.
Shout out to my JD.
Don't let him speak now. Don't let him speak now. We'll get the next question.
Now that's a man right there.
Look, yo, and he put them two broads in their place, bro.
Yeah,
Please.
2 women.
Come on, let's get it, man.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The
We
CBP
want to have
One app has not been on the books.
It's something that Kamala Harris created.
2 women.
Gentlemen, the audience can't hear you because your mics are cut. We have so much we want to get to. Thank you for explaining the legal process. Nora.
Thank you, Margaret.
And they're not,
The
hold up,
economy
they're not
is
supposed to be fact checking him, and they're fact checking him. Like, this is insane, bro. The media is definitely
called him, and he called them out.
Hey, they are starting to hate real men.
I mean, they're starting to. They've been here.
Yeah.
We got it. We got
concern
it.
for voters. Each of your campaigns has released an economic plan. So let's talk about the specifics. Governor Walz, Vice President Harris unveiled a plan that includes billions in tax credits for manufacturing, housing, and a renewed child tax credit. The Wharton School says your proposals will increase the nation's deficit by $1.2 trillion. How would you pay for that without ballooning the deficit? Governor, I'll give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. And Kamala Harris and I do believe in the middle class because that's where we come from. We both grew up in that. We understand. So those of you out there listening tonight, you're hearing a lot of stuff back and forth, and it's good. It's healthy. That's what this is supposed to happen. You should be listening. How's this going to impact me? The bold forward plan that Kamala Harris put out there is talking about this housing issue. The one thing is there's 3 million new houses proposed under this plan with down payment assistance on the front end to get you in a house. A house is much more than just an asset to be traded somewhere. It's foundational to where you're at. And then making sure that the things you buy every day, whether they be prescription drugs or other things, that there's fairness in that. Look, the $35 insulin is a good thing, but it costs $5 to make insulin. They were charging $800 before this law went into effect. As far as the housing goes, I've seen it in Minnesota. 12% more houses in Minneapolis, prices went down on rent 4%. It's working. And then making sure tax cuts go to the middle class. $6,000 child tax credit, we have one in Minnesota, reduces childhood poverty by 1/3. We save money in the long run, and we do the right thing for families. And then getting businesses off the ground. The law as it stands right now is $5,000 tax credit for small business, increasing that to $50,000. Now, this is a philosophical difference between us. Donald Trump made a promise, and I'll give you this, he kept it. He took folks to Mar-a-Lago, said, you're rich as hell, I'm going to give you a tax cut. He gave the tax cuts that predominantly went to the top class. What happened there was an $8 trillion increase in the national debt, the largest ever. Now he's proposing a 20% consumption or sales tax on everything we bring in. Everyone agrees, including businesses, it would be destabilizing it, it would increase inflation and potentially lead to a recession. Look, this is simple for you. Where are we going? Kamala Harris has said to do the things she wants to do, we'll just ask the wealthiest to pay their fair share. When you do that, our system works best, more people are participating in it, and folks have the things that they need.
Socialism.
I want to give you a moment to respond on that. But similarly, the Wharton School has done an analysis of the Trump plan and says it would increase the nation's deficit by $5.8 trillion. My question is the same for you. How do you pay for all that without ballooning the deficit? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, you're going to hear a lot from Tim Walz this evening, and you just heard it in the answer. A lot of what Kamala Harris proposes to do, and some of it, I'll be honest with you, it even sounds pretty good. Here's what you won't hear, is that Kamala Harris has already done it. Because she's been the vice president for 3.5 years. She had the opportunity to enact all of these great policies. And what she's actually done instead is drive the cost of food higher by 25%, drive the cost of housing higher by about 60%, open the American southern border, and make middle-class life unaffordable for a large number of Americans. If Kamala Harris has such great plans for how to address middle-class problems, then she ought to do them now. Not when asking for a promotion, but in the job the American people gave her 3.5 years ago. And the fact that she isn't tells you a lot about how much you can trust her actual plans. Now, Donald Trump's economic plan is not just a plan, but it's also a record. A lot of those same economists attack Donald Trump's plans, and they have PhDs, but they don't have common sense and they don't have wisdom, because Donald Trump's economic policies delivered the highest take-home pay in a generation in this country, 1.5% inflation, and to boot, peace and security all over the world. So when people say that Donald Trump's economic plan doesn't make sense, I say, look at the record. He delivered rising take-home pay for American workers. Now, Tim admirably admits that they want to undo the Trump tax cuts. But if you look at what was so different about Donald Trump's tax cuts, even from previous Republican tax cut plans, is that a lot of those resources went to giving more take-home pay to middle class and working class Americans. It was passed in 2017, and you saw an American economic boom unlike we've seen in a generation in this country. That is a record that I'm proud to run on, and we're going to get back to that common sense wisdom so that you can afford to live the American dream again. I know a lot of you are struggling. I know a lot of you are worried about paying the bills. It's going to stop when Donald Trump brings back common sense to this country.
Governor, do you want to respond to that? What has Kamala Harris done for the middle class?
Yeah, well, Kamala Harris, day one, was Donald Trump's failure on COVID that led to the collapse of our economy. We were already before COVID in a manufacturing recession, but 10 million people out of work, largest percentage since the Great Depression. 9 million jobs closed on that. That was day one, whether it was the Infrastructure Act or other things we moved. Now, you made a question about experts, said this. I've made a note of this. Economists can't be trusted. Science can't be trusted. National security folks can't be trusted. Look, if you're going to be president, you don't have all the answers. Donald Trump believes he does. My pro tip of the day is this. If you need heart surgery, listen to the people at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, not Donald Trump. And the same thing goes with this. And I ask you out there, teachers, nurses, truck drivers, whatever, how is it fair that you're paying your taxes every year and Donald Trump hasn't paid any federal tax in the last 15 years, and the last year as president? That's what's wrong with the system. There's a way around it, and he's bragged about that. We're just asking for fairness in it, and that's all you want.
You have a minute.
Governor, you say trust the experts. But those same experts for 40 years said that if we shipped our manufacturing base off to China, we'd get cheaper goods. They lied about that. They said if we shipped our industrial base off to other countries, to Mexico and elsewhere, it would make the middle class stronger. They were wrong about that.
They said get the jab.
They were wrong about the idea that if we made America less self-reliant, less productive in our own nation, that it would somehow make us better off, and they were wrong about it. And for the first time in a generation, Donald Trump had the wisdom and the courage to say to that bipartisan consensus, we're not doing it anymore. We're bringing American manufacturing back. We're unleashing American energy. We're going to make more of our own stuff. And this isn't just an economic issue. I mean, I've got 3 beautiful little kids at home, 7, 4, and 2, and I love them very much, and I hope they're in bed right now. But look, so many of the drugs, the pharmaceuticals that we put in the bodies of our children are manufactured by nations that hate us. This has to stop. And we're not going to stop it by listening to experts. We're going to stop it by listening to common sense wisdom, which is what Donald Trump governed on.
Senator, your time is up. Governor Walz, can you address that? I mean, voters say they trust Donald Trump on the economy more. Why?
Well, if you're listening tonight and you want billionaires to get tax cuts, you heard what the numbers were. Look, I'm a union guy on this. I'm not a guy who wanted to ship things overseas, but I understand that, look, we produce soybeans and corn. We need to have fair trading partners. That's something that we believe in. I think the thing that most concerns me on this is Donald Trump was the guy.
God damn.
The largest trade deficit in American history, which
everything is Donald Trump, bro. You can't answer a question without I'm telling you, bro.
China. So the rhetoric is good. Much of what the senator said right there, I'm in agreement with him on this. I watched it happen too. I watched it to my communities, and we talked about that. But we had people undercutting the right to collectively bargain. We had right to work states made it more difficult. We had companies that were willing to ship it over, and we saw people profit. Folks that are venture capital in some cases, putting money into companies that were overseas. We're in agreement that we bring those home. The issue is Donald Trump is talking about it. Kamala Harris has a record, 250,000 more manufacturing jobs just out of the IRA.
May I respond to that?
Yes.
So appreciate that. So If you notice, what Governor Walz just did is he said, first of all, Donald Trump has to listen to the experts. And then when he acknowledged that the experts screwed up, he said, well, Donald Trump didn't do nearly as good of a job as the statistics
that's a gross generalization.
that he did. So what Tim Walz is doing, and I honestly, Tim, I think you got a tough job here because you've got to play whack-a-mole. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver rising take-home pay, which of course he did. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver lower inflation, which of course he did. And then you've simultaneously got to defend Kamala Harris's atrocious economic record, which has made gas, groceries, and housing unaffordable for American citizens. I was raised by a woman who would sometimes go into medical debt so that she could put food on the table in our household. I know what it's like to not be able to afford the things that you need to afford. We can do so much better. To all of you watching, we can get back to an America that's affordable again. We just got to get back to common sense economic principles.
I hope we have a conversation on healthcare then.
Senator, Governor,
Please.
thank you. Margaret? We have a lot to get to ahead, gentlemen, on many topics. But right now, I want to talk about personal qualifications. The vice president is often the last voice the president hears before making consequential decisions. We want to ask you about your leadership qualities. Governor Walz, you said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska, 400, town that you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service. I joined the National Guard at 17, worked on family farms, and then I used the GI Bill to become a teacher, passionate about it, a young teacher. My first year out, I got the opportunity in the summer of '89 to travel to China. 35 years ago, be able to do that. I came back home and then started a program to take young people there. We would take basketball teams, we would take baseball teams, we would take dancers, and we would go back and forth to China. The issue for that was to try and learn. Now, look, my community knows who I am. They saw where I was at. Look, I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect. And I'm a knucklehead at times.
Okay.
But it's always been about that. Those same people
I'll give him that. That was a good answer. I mean, he took responsibility. You got to give him that.
elected me to Congress for 12 years. And in Congress, I was one of the most bipartisan people, working on things like farm bills that we got done, working on veterans benefits. And then the people of Minnesota were able to elect me to governor twice. So look, my commitment has been from the beginning to make sure that I'm there for the people, to make sure that I get this right. I will say more than anything, many times I will talk a lot. I will get caught up in the rhetoric.
So you're a liar.
Being there, the difference it made in my life. I learned a lot about China. I hear the critiques of this. I would make the case that Donald Trump should have come on one of those trips with us. I guarantee you he wouldn't be praising Xi Jinping about COVID. And I guarantee you he wouldn't start a trade war that he ends up losing. So this is about trying to understand the world. It's about trying to do the best you can for your community. And then it's putting yourself out there and letting your folks understand what it is. My commitment, whether it be through teaching, which I was good at, or whether it was being a good soldier or was being a good member of Congress, those are the things that I think are the values that people care about.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said.
That's a big miss. That is a huge mistake. My nigga, you said you was at the protest in Tiananmen Square. You wasn't there.
Mistake, buddy.
You wasn't there, bro.
And I'm glad she pushed back on that too.
Yeah, this is terrible, bro. I mean, I'll give it to him. He's not as dumb as I thought he was.
He's not. I give him that.
But you know what though? The bar is so low because we had Kamala Harris at first. So, the bar is low.
So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Thank you, Governor. Senator Vance, in 2016, you called your running mate, Donald Trump, unfit for the nation's highest office, and you said he could be America's Hitler. I know you've been asked many times, and you've said you regret those comments and explained you then voted for Donald Trump in 2020. But the Washington Post reported new messages last week in which you also disparaged Trump's economic record while he was president, writing to someone in 2020, quote, Trump thoroughly failed to deliver his economic populism. You're now his running mate, and you've shifted many of your policy stances to align with his. If you become vice president, why should Americans trust that you will give Donald Trump the advice he needs to hear and not just the advice he wants to hear? You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, Margaret, because I've always been open. And sometimes, of course, I've disagreed with the president, but I've also been extremely open about the fact that I was wrong about Donald Trump. I was wrong, first of all, because I believed some of the media stories that turned out to be dishonest fabrications of his record.
Great answer.
But most importantly, Donald Trump delivered for the American people. Rising wages, rising take-home pay, an economy that worked for normal Americans, a secure southern border, a lot of things, frankly, that I didn't think he'd be able to deliver on. And yeah, when you screw up, when you misspeak, when you get something wrong and you change your mind, you ought to be honest with the American people about it. It's one of the reasons, Margaret, why I've done so many interviews is because I think it's important to actually explain to the American people where I come down on the issues and what changed. Now, you pointed out to messages from 2020. Margaret, I've been extremely consistent that I think there were a lot of things that we could have done better in the Trump administration the first round if Congress was doing its job. I strongly believe, and I've been a United States senator, that Congress is not just a high-class debating society. It's not just a forum for senators and congressmen to whine about problems. It's a forum to govern. So there were a lot of things on the border, on tariffs, for example, where I think that we could have done so much more if the Republican Congress and the Democrats in Congress had been a little bit better about how they govern the country. They were so obsessed with impeaching Donald Trump, they couldn't actually govern. And I want to talk about this tariff issue in particular, Margaret, because Tim just accused this of being a national sales tax. Look, the one thing, and you're probably surprised to hear me praising Joe Biden, but the one thing that Joe Biden did is he continued some of the Trump tariffs that protected American manufacturing. And it's the one issue, the most pro-worker part of the Biden administration. It's the one issue where Kamala Harris has run away from Joe Biden's record. Think about this. If you're trying to employ slave laborers in China at $3 a day,
fatality.
You're going to do that and undercut American workers unless our country stands up for itself and says you're not accessing our markets unless you're paying middle-class Americans a fair wage.
Senator, your time is up.
His face is so red.
Now to the issue of reproductive rights. Governor Walz, after Roe versus Wade was overturned, you signed a bill into law that made Minnesota one of the least restrictive states in the nation when it comes to abortion. Former President Trump said in the last debate that you believe abortion, quote, in the 9th month is absolutely fine. Yes or no? Is that what you support? I'll give you 2 minutes.
That's not what the bill says. Look, this issue is what...
My nigga, do you support it or not?
Right. Everyone's mind. Donald Trump put this all into motion.
Donald Trump again!
Bro.
Nigga, do you support it?
Motion. He brags about how great it was that he put the judges in and overturned Roe versus Wade. 52 years of personal autonomy. And then he tells us, oh, we send it to the states. It's a beautiful thing. Amanda Zaworski would disagree with you on it's a beautiful thing. A young bride in Texas waiting for their child at 18 weeks.
A mythical creature he just made up out of the top of his ass.
Right.
She has a complication, a tear in the membrane. She needs to go in. The medical care at that point needs to be decided by the doctor. And that would have been an abortion. But in Texas, that would have put them in legal jeopardy. She went home, got sepsis, nearly dies, and now she may have difficulty having children. Or
one out of a trillion.
Duvall, a 12-year-old child raped and impregnated by her stepfather. Those are horrific. Now, when God asked about that, Senator Vance said 2 wrongs don't make a right. There is no right in this. So in Minnesota, what we did was restore Roe versus Wade. We made sure that we put women in charge of their health care. But look, this is not where, if you don't know Amanda or a Hadley, you soon will. Their Project 2025 is going to have a registry.
Oh, man, he's grasping at the straws.
Of pregnancies. It's going to make it more difficult, if not impossible, to get contraception and limit access, if not eliminate access to infertility treatments. For so many of you out there listening, me included, infertility treatments are why I have a child. That's nobody else's business, but those things are being proposed. And the catch-all on this is, well, the states will decide what's right for Texas might not be right for Washington. That's not how this works. This is basic human right. We have seen maternal mortality skyrocket in Texas, outpacing many other countries in the world. This is about healthcare. In Minnesota, we are ranked first in healthcare for a reason. We trust women, we trust doctors.
Senator, do you want to respond? And will you create a federal pregnancy monitoring agency?
No, Nora, certainly we won't. And I want to talk about this issue because I know a lot of Americans care about it, and I know a lot of...
He never answered the question.
Never answered.
Never answered the question.
Not at all.
Do you support 9th-month abortions? He did not answer it.
Americans don't agree with everything that I've ever said on this topic. And, you know, I grew up in a working class family in a neighborhood where I knew a lot of young women who had unplanned pregnancies and decided to terminate those pregnancies because they feel like they didn't have any other options. And, you know, one of them is actually very dear to me. And I know she's watching tonight, and I love you. And she told me something a couple years ago that she felt like if she hadn't had that abortion, that it would have destroyed her life because she was in an abusive relationship. And I think that what I take from that as a Republican who proudly wants to protect innocent life in this country, who proudly wants to protect the vulnerable, is that my party, we've got to do so much better of a job at earning the American people's trust back on this issue where they frankly just don't trust us. And I think that's one of the things that Donald Trump and I are endeavoring to do. I want us as a Republican Party to be pro-family in the fullest sense of the word. I want us to support fertility treatments. I want us to make it easier for moms to afford to have babies. I want it to make it easier for young families to afford a home so they can afford a place to raise that family. And I think there's so much that we can do on the public policy front just to give women more options. Now, of course, Donald Trump has been very clear that on the abortion policy specifically, that we have a big country and it's diverse. And California has a different viewpoint on this than Georgia. Georgia has a different viewpoint from Arizona. And the proper way to handle this, as messy as democracy sometimes is to let voters make these decisions, let the individual states make their abortion policy. And I think that's what makes the most sense in a very big, a very diverse, and let's be honest, sometimes a very, very messy and divided country.
Governor, would you like to respond and also answer the question about restrictions?
Yeah, well, the question got asked and Donald Trump made the accusation that wasn't true about Minnesota. Well, let me tell you about this idea that there's diverse states. There's a young woman named Amber Thurman. She happened to be in Georgia, a restrictive state. Because of that, she had to...
Georgia literally yesterday just changed the law to 22 weeks instead of 6 weeks, which I think is crazy. But like he said, let the states decide it. The state of Georgia decided that now you can have a pregnancy up to 22 weeks. So what are you talking about?
Travel a long distance to North Carolina to try and get her care. Amber Thurman died in that journey back and forth. The fact of the matter is, how can we as a nation say that your life and your rights, as basic as the right to control your own body, is determined on geography? There's a very real chance, had Amber Thurman lived in Minnesota, she would be alive today. That's why the restoration of Roe versus Wade. When you listen to Vice...
But what about all the dead babies?
She'll rather kill the baby.
What point do they matter? We'll get into that when they're done. But what about them?
President Harris talk about this subject? Can you hear me talk about it? You hear us talking exactly the same. Donald Trump is trying to figure out how to get the political right of this. I agree with a lot of what Senator Vance said about what's happening. His running mate, though, does not, and that's the problem.
Governor, your time is up. Senator, let me ask you about that. He mentioned, it was, I think, referring to a national ban. In the past, you have supported a federal ban on abortion after 15 weeks. In fact, you said if someone can't support legislation like that, quote, you are making the United States the most barbaric pro-abortion regime anywhere in the entire world. My question is, why have you changed your position?
Well, Nora, first of all, I never supported a national ban. I did when I was running for Senate in 2022, talk about setting some minimum national standard. For example, we have a partial birth abortion ban in place in this country at the federal level. I don't think anybody's trying to get rid of that, or at least I hope not, though I know that Democrats have taken a very radical pro-abortion stance. But Nora, one of the things that changed is in the state of Ohio, we had a referendum in 2023, and the people of Ohio voted overwhelmingly, by the way, against my position. And I think that what I learned from that, Nora, is that we've got to do a better job at winning back people's trust. So many young women would love to have families. So many young women also see an unplanned pregnancy as something that's going to destroy their livelihood, destroy their education, destroy their relationships. And we have got to earn people's trust back. And that's why Donald Trump and I are committed to pursuing pro-family policies, making childcare more accessible, making fertility treatments more accessible, because we've got to do a better job at that. And that's what real leadership is.
Governor, your response.
I'm going to respond on the pro-abortion piece of that. No, we're not. We're pro-women. We're pro-freedom to make your own choice. We know what the implications are to not be that. Women having miscarriages, women not getting the care, physicians feeling like they may be prosecuted for providing that care. And as far as making sure that we're educating our children and giving them options, Minnesota's a state with one of the lowest teen pregnancy rates. We understand that too. We know that the options need to be available, and we make that true. We also make it, we're a top 3 state for the best place to raise children. But these two things, to try and say that we're pro-children, but we don't like this, or you guys are pro-abortion, that's not the case at all. We are pro-freedoms for women to make their choices, and we're going, and Kamala Harris is making the case, to make options for children more affordable, a $6,000 child tax credit, but we're not going to base that on the backs of making someone like Amber Thurman drive 600 miles to try and get health care.
Senator?
May I respond to that? First of all, Governor, I agree with you. Amber Thurman should still be alive, and there are a lot of people who should still be alive, and I certainly wish that she was. And maybe you're free to disagree with me on this and explain this to me, but as I read the Minnesota law that you signed into law, the statute that you signed into law, it says that a doctor who presides over an abortion where the baby survives, the doctor is under no obligation to provide life-saving care to a baby who survives a botched late-term abortion. That is, I think,
That's
whether
not
you're
true.
pro-choice or pro-abortion, that is fundamentally barbaric. And that's why I use that word, Nora, is because some of what we've seen, do you want to force Catholic hospitals to perform abortions against their will? Because Kamala Harris has supported suing Catholic nuns to violate their freedom of conscience. We can be a big and diverse country where we respect people's freedom of conscience and make the country more pro-baby and pro-family. But please.
Yes, Governor, please respond.
Look, this is one where there's always something there. This is a very simple proposition. These are women's decisions to make about their healthcare decisions, and the physicians who know best when they need to do this. Trying to distort the way a law is written to try and make a point, that's not it at all.
What was I wrong about, Governor? Please tell me, what was I wrong about?
That is not the way the law is written. Look, I've given I've given this advice on a lot of things, that getting involved, getting engaged, that's been misread, and it was fact-checked at the last debate. But the point on this is there's a continuation of these guys.
It was not fact-checked at the last debate.
To try and tell women or to get involved. I use this line on this, just mind your own business. On this. Things worked best when Roe versus Wade was in place. When we do a restoration of Roe, that works best. That doesn't preclude us from increasing funding for children. It doesn't increase us from making sure that once that child's born, like in Minnesota, they get meals, they get early childhood education, they get health care. So the hiding behind we're going to do all these other things when you're not proposing them in your budget. Kamala Harris is proposing them. She's proposing all those things to make life easier for families.
I asked a specific question, Governor. You gave me a slogan as a response.
It's not the case. It's not true. That's not what the law says. So they fact-checked it with President Trump.
Gentlemen, there's a lot to discuss. We have to move on, and we're going to be right back with much more of the CBS News vice presidential debate in just a moment.
All right, we paused a few times, so I should be able to skip past this.
I mean, God, how many times you gonna say Donald Trump in the debate? He ain't doing that.
48 hours.
On the free CBS News app.
It's just all
and she's determined she won't be the last.
My parents had raised me to believe that I could do anything I wanted to do.
All right, so real quick before they get back to this, so far, what do you guys think, man? This is crazy.
Well, for me, two things. One, first of all, JD Vance is a good, very good speaker, right? Number two, he actually answers the question. You know what I mean? He actually answers the question, which is I've never seen a politician do that for real, but he actually answered the question. Number three is when you see him answer the question directly and he goes against what the other one says, you can see the other guy's face just get red as a motherfucker when he says something correct or goes against whatever, you know.
For children and teens in America is by firearms. Senator Vance, you oppose most gun legislation that Democrats claim would curb gun violence. You oppose red flag gun laws and legislation to ban certain semi-automatic rifles, including AR-15s. So let me ask you, earlier this year, for the first time, the parents of a school shooter were convicted of involuntary manslaughter and sentenced to 10 years in prison. Do you think holding parents responsible could curb mass shootings? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, Laura, on that particular case, I don't know the full details, but I certainly trust local law enforcement and local authorities to make those decisions. I think in some cases the answer is going to be yes, and in some cases the answer is going to be no. And the details really matter here, of course. For example, if a kid steals a gun, that's going to be different than if a parent hands over a gun knowing that their kid is potentially dangerous. But look, I want to just sort of speak as a father of 3 beautiful little kids, and our oldest is now in 2nd grade. And like a lot of parents, we send our kids to school with such hope and such joy and such pride at their little faces on the first day of school. And we know, unfortunately, that a lot of kids are going to experience this terrible epidemic of gun violence. And of course, our hearts go out to the families that are affected by this terrible stuff. And we do have to do better. And I think that Governor Walz and I actually probably agree that we need to do better on this. The question is just, how do we actually do it? Now, here's something that really bothers me and worries me about this epidemic of violence. The gross majority, close to 90% in some of the statistics I've seen, of the gun violence in this country is committed with illegally obtained firearms. And while we're on that topic, we know that thanks to Kamala Harris's open border, we've seen a massive influx in the number of illegal guns run by the Mexican drug cartels. So that number, the amount of illegal guns in our country is higher today than it was 3.5 years ago. But what do we do about the schools? What do we do to protect our kids? And I think the answer is, and I say this not loving the answer, because I don't want my kids to go to school in a school that feels unsafe or where there are visible signs of security. But I unfortunately think that we have to increase security in our schools. We have to make the doors lock better. We have to make the doors stronger. We've got to make the windows stronger. And of course, we've got to increase school resource officers, because the idea that we can magically wave a wand and take guns out of the hands of bad guys, it just doesn't fit with recent experience. So we've got to make our schools safer. And I think we've got to have some common sense bipartisan solutions for how to do that.
Governor, you have 2 minutes.
Well, I think all the parents watching tonight, this is just your biggest nightmare. Look, I got a 17-year-old, and he witnessed a shooting at a community center playing volleyball. Those things don't leave you. As a member of Congress, I sat in my office surrounded by dozens of the Sandy Hook parents, and they were looking at my 7-year-old picture on the wall. Their 7-year-old were dead, and they were asking us to do something. And look, I'm a hunter. I own firearms. The vice president is. We understand that the Second Amendment is there, but our first responsibility is to our kids to figure this out. In Minnesota, we've enacted enhanced red flag laws, enhanced background checks, and we can start to get data. But here's the problem. If we really want to solve this, we've got folks that won't allow research to be even done on gun violence. And this idea that we should just live with it, and I here's what I do think, that this is a good start to the conversation. I 100% believe that Senator Vance hates it when these kids, it's abhorrent and it breaks your heart. I agree with that. But that's not far enough when we know there are things that work. I've spent time in Finland and seen some Finnish schools. They don't have this happen, even though they have a high gun ownership rate in the country. There are reasonable things that we can do to make a difference. It's not infringing on your Second Amendment. And the idea to have some of these weapons out there, it just doesn't make any sense. Kamala Harris, as an attorney general, worked on this issue. She knows that it's there. No one's trying to scaremonger and say we're taking your guns, but I ask all of you out there, do you want your schools hardened to look like a fort? Is that what we have to go? When we know there's countries around the world that their children aren't practicing these types of drills. They're being kids. We owe it to them to get a fix. These are things that shouldn't be that difficult. You can still keep your firearms, and we can make a difference. We have to. If you're listening tonight, this breaks your heart.
Senator.
Tim, first of all, I didn't know that your 17-year-old witnessed a shooting. I'm sorry about that, and I hope that he's doing okay. Christ have mercy. It is awful. And I appreciate what Tim said, actually, about Finland, because I do think it illustrates some of the frankly weird differences between our own country's gun violence problem and Finland. Is okay, first of all, we have way higher rates of mental health abuse or mental health substance abuse. We have way higher rates of depression, way higher rates of anxiety. We unfortunately have a mental health crisis in this country that I really do think that we need to get to the root causes of, because I don't think it's the whole reason why we have such a bad gun violence problem, but I do think it's a big piece of it. Another driver of the gun violence epidemic, especially that affecting our kids, it doesn't earn as many headlines, but is the terrible gun violence problem in a lot of our big cities. And this is why we have to empower law enforcement to arrest the bad guys, put them away, and take gun offenders off the streets. I think there's a whole host of things that we can do here, but I do think at our schools we've got to talk about more security.
Senator, thank you. Governor, you previously opposed an assault weapons ban, but only later in your political career did you change your position. Why?
Yeah, I sat in that office with those Sandy Hook parents. I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was an NRA guy for a long time. They used to teach gun safety. I'm of an age where my shotgun was in my car so I could pheasant hunt after football practice. That's not where we live today. And several things I want to mention on this is talking about cities and where it's at. The number one where the most firearm deaths happen in Minnesota are rural suicides. And we have an epidemic of children getting guns and shooting themselves. And so we have, and we should look at all of the issues, making sure folks have health care and all that, but I want to be very careful. This idea of stigmatizing.
First of all, is he going to compare suicides to the thousands and thousands of people who are getting killed in inner cities every year?
Yep.
This is insane, bro.
Just
this is insane.
Mental health. Just because you have a mental health issue doesn't mean you're violent. And I think what we end up doing is we start looking for a scapegoat. Sometimes it just is the guns. It's just the guns. And there are things that you can do about it. But
Who fires the guns, you idiot?
And I think this is a healthy conversation. I think there's a capacity to find solutions on this that work, protect Second Amendment, protect our children. That's our priority.
Gentlemen, thank you, Margaret. Thank you, Nora. Let's turn now to the top contributor to inflation, the high cost of housing and rent. There's a shortage of more than 4 million homes in the United States, and that contributes to the high housing prices. Governor Walz, the Harris campaign promises a $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers and a $10,000 tax credit. They also promise to build 3 million new homes. Where are you building these homes, and won't handing out that kind of money just drive up prices higher?
No,
exactly what I said at the start of this goddamn.
Yeah.
So let's go, man.
It's not handing out. We have, first, let me say this issue of housing, and I think those of you listening on this, the problem we've had is that we've got a lot of folks that see housing as another commodity. It can be bought up, it can be shifted, it can be moved around. Those are not folks living in those houses. Those of you listening tonight, that house is a big deal. I bought and owned one house in my life. My mom still lives in the house where I was. And when I think of a house, I'm thinking of Christmas services after midnight mass where you go with your family. We need to make it more affordable. And one of the things, as I said, this program that the vice president is pushing forward and bringing a new way of approaching this is something we're doing in Minnesota from that lead. We in the state invested in making sure our housing was the biggest investment that we'd ever made in housing. It starts to make it easier. We cut some of the red tape. Local folks, look, we can't do it at the federal level, but local folks make it easier to build those homes. And then that down payment assistance. I can tell all of you out there, certainly for me, using the GI Bill was one thing, but a veteran's home loan, the big thing about a veteran's home loan is you don't have to pay the down payment. Those are things that make it there. Now, look, you're going to pay it back. And you're going to pay your mortgage. Those are things that we know in the long run, the appreciated value, the generational wealth that's created from it. And I will give Minneapolis an example. Minneapolis is the one city where we've seen the lowest inflation rates. We've seen a 12% increase in stock because we've put some of these things in. And we're implementing a state program to make sure we give some of that down payment assistance. We get it back from people because here's what we know. People with stable housing end up with stable jobs. People with stable housing have their kids able to get to school. All of those things in the long run end up saving our money. And that's the thing that I think we should be able to find some common ground in, but we can't blame immigrants for the only reason. That's not the case that's happening in many cities. The fact of the matter is that we don't have enough naturally affordable housing, but we can make sure that the government's there to help kickstart it, create that base.
Governor,
Socialism.
your time is up. Senator Vance, as far as your campaign's position, the promise is to seize federal lands to build homes, remove regulation, provide tax breaks, and cut back on immigration, which you say pushes up prices. Where are you going to build all the new homes you're promising, and what part of any of this plan will provide immediate relief? You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, Tim just said something that I agree with. We don't want to blame immigrants for higher housing prices, but we do want to blame Kamala Harris for letting in millions of illegal aliens into this country, which does drive up costs, Tim. 25 million illegal aliens competing with Americans for scarce homes is one of the most significant drivers of home prices in the country. It's why we have massive increases in home prices that have happened right alongside massive increases in illegal alien populations under Kamala Harris's leadership. Now, Tim just mentioned a bunch of ideas. Now, some of those ideas I actually think are halfway decent, and some of them I disagree with. But the most important thing here is Kamala Harris is not running as a newcomer to politics. She is the sitting vice president. If she wants to enact all of these policies to make housing more affordable, I invite her to use the office that the American people already gave her, not sit around and campaign and do nothing while Americans find the American dream of homeownership completely unaffordable. Now, you asked, Margaret, what would immediately change the equation for American citizens? If you lower energy prices, as Donald Trump says, drill, baby, drill, one of the biggest drivers of housing costs aside from illegal immigration is, think about it. If a truck driver is paying 40% more for diesel, then the lumber he's delivering to the job site to build the house is also going to become a lot more expensive. If we open up American energy, you will get immediate pricing relief for American citizens, not, by the way, just in housing, but in a whole host of other economic goods too.
Senator Vance, you still have 23 seconds there. Do you want to answer?
Can I have it?
Where, Governor, we will get to you in a moment. But Senator, where are you going to seize the federal lands? Can you clarify?
Well, what Donald Trump has said is we have a lot of federal lands that aren't being used for anything. They're not being used for national park. They're not being used, and they could be places where we build a lot of housing. And I do think that we should be opening up building in this country. We have a lot of land that could be used. We have a lot of Americans that need homes. We should be kicking out illegal immigrants who are competing for those homes, and we should be building more homes for the American citizens who deserve to be here.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, I do want to let you respond to the allegation that the vice president is letting in.
Well, of course, that's not true. And again, you have the facts. I guess we agreed not to fact check. I'll check it. That, look, crossings are down compared to when Donald Trump left office.
Oh,
but it's again blaming and not trying to find the solution. I was going to ask, though, on this question, are we going to drill and build houses in the same federal land? And I think when people hear federal lands, these are really important pieces of land. Now, Minnesota doesn't have a lot of federal lands. I know in the western part of the countries we do. There's not a lot of federal lands in and around Minneapolis, for example. So the issue is I don't understand the federal lands issue unless we see this, and I worry about this as someone who cares deeply about our national parks and our federal lands. Look, Minnesota, we protect these things. We've got about 20% of the world's fresh water. These lands protect. They're there for a reason. They belong to all of us. But again, this is when you view housing and you view these things as commodities. Like, there's a chance to make money here. Let's take this federal land and let's sell it to people for that. I think there's better ways to do this. We've seen it in Minnesota. We're able to refurbish some of these houses. We're able to make some investments. That gets people in. And I'm still on the fact on this. Economists, Senator Vance, you said you don't like the economists. Which economists are saying that it is immigrants that's adding to the cost?
Governor, your time is up. But Senator, on that point, I'd like for you to clarify. There are many contributing factors to high housing costs. What evidence do you have that migrants are part of this problem?
Well, there's a Federal Reserve study that we're happy to share after the debate. We'll put it up on social media, actually, that really drills down on the connection between increased levels of migration, especially illegal immigration, and higher housing prices. Now, of course, Margaret, that's not the entire driver of higher housing prices. It's also the regulatory regime of Kamala Harris. Look, we are a country of builders. We're a country of doers. We're a country of explorers. But we increasingly have a federal administration that makes it harder to develop our resources resources, makes it harder to build things, and wants to throw people in jail for not doing everything exactly as Kamala Harris says they have to do. And what that means is that you have a lot of people who would love to build homes who aren't able to build homes.
Do it because
I actually agree with Tim Walz. We should get out of this idea of housing as a commodity. But the thing that has most turned housing into a commodity is giving it away to millions upon millions of people who have no legal right to be here.
What are the federal regulations? I deal with this as a governor.
You can very quickly reply.
I'm sorry. I get this as a governor, and I don't necessarily disagree with that, that in some cases, many of those are local, many of them are state. I don't know which ones are federal, but I think whenever we talk regulations, people think they can get rid of them. I think you want to be able to get out of your house in a fire. I think you want to make sure that it's fireproof and those types of things. So which are the regulations? Because the vice president's not responsible for those. Congress writes those.
Governor, thank you. Gentlemen, we have a lot to get to. You're passionate about the housing crisis, I can tell. But Nora?
Thank you. One of the top problems facing Americans is the high cost of health care. Senator Vance, at the last presidential debate, former President Trump was asked about replacing the Affordable Care Act. In response, he said, "I have concepts of a plan." Since then, Senator, you've talked about changing how chronically ill Americans get health insurance. Can you explain how that would work? And can you guarantee that Americans with pre-existing conditions won't pay more? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, of course, we're going to cover Americans with pre-existing conditions. In fact, a lot of my family members have gotten health care. I believe, members of my family actually got private health insurance, at least for the first time, switched off of Medicaid onto private insurance for the first time under Donald Trump's leadership. And I think that, a lot of people have criticized this concepts of a plan remark. I think it's very simple common sense. I think as Tim Walz knows from 12 years in Congress, you're not going to propose a 900-page bill standing on a debate stage. It would bore everybody to tears, and it wouldn't actually mean anything because part of this is the give and take of bipartisan negotiation. Now, when Donald Trump was actually president, and again, he has a record to be proud of, prescription drugs fell in 2018 for the first time in a very long time. Under Kamala Harris's leadership, prescription drugs are up about 7%. Under Donald Trump's entire 4 years, they were up about 1.5%. He introduced pricing transparency. Think about healthcare. You go into a hospital, you try to buy something, and nobody knows what it actually costs. That price transparency will actually give American consumers a little bit more choice and will also drive down costs. And we talked about, the reinsurance regulations is what I was talking about. Look, Donald Trump has said that if we allow states to experiment a little bit on how to cover both the chronically ill, but the non-chronically ill, it's not just a plan. He actually implemented some of these regulations when he was president of the United States. And I think you can make a really good argument that it salvaged Obamacare, which was doing disastrously until Donald Trump came along. And I think this is an important point about President Trump. Of course, you don't have to agree with everything that President Trump has ever said or ever done. But when Obamacare was crushing under the weight of its own regulatory burden and healthcare costs, Donald Trump could have destroyed the program. Instead, he worked in a bipartisan way to ensure that Americans had access to affordable care. It's not perfect, of course, and there's so much more that we can do, but I think that Donald Trump has earned the right to put in place some better healthcare policies. He's earned it because he did it successfully the first time.
Governor?
All right, here's where being an old guy gives you some history. I was there at the creation of the ACA. And the reason it was so important is I come from a major healthcare state, home of the Mayo Clinic, home to Medical Alley, 3M, Medtronic, all of those. We understand healthcare. It's why we're ranked first on affordability and accessibility and quality of healthcare. And so what I know is under Kamala Harris, more people are covered than they have before. And those of you listening, this is critical to you. Now, Donald Trump all of a sudden wants to go back and remember this. He ran on the first thing he was going to do on day one was to repeal Obamacare. On day one, he tried to sign an executive order to repeal the ACA. He signed on to a lawsuit to repeal the ACA, but lost at the Supreme Court. And he would have repealed the ACA had it not been for the courage of John McCain to save that bill. Now, fast forward, what that means to you is you lose your pre-existing conditions. If you're sitting at home and you got asthma, too bad. If you're a woman, probably not. Broke your foot during football, might kick you out. Your kids get kicked out when they're 26. Kamala Harris negotiated drug prices for the first time with Medicare. We have 10 drugs that will come online, the most common ones that'll be there. But look, this issue, and when Donald Trump said, I've got a concept of a plan, it cracked me up as a fourth grade teacher because my kids would have never given me that. But what Senator Vance just explained might be worse than a concept, because what he explained is pre-Obamacare. And I'll make this as simple as possible because I have done this for a long time. What they're saying is, if you're healthy, why should you be paying more? So what they're going to do is let insurance companies pick who they insure, because guess what happens? You pay a premium, it's not much. They figure they're not going to have to pay out to you. But those of you a little old...
Yo, is it just me, or does it seem like all of these questions are about socialism?
Yeah.
Your question is about what are you going to give out for people for free?
For free. It's socialism.
Let's go.
Older, gray, got cancer, you're going to get kicked out of it. That's why the system didn't work. Kamala Harris will protect and enhance the ACA.
Governor, thank you. Senator, you have not yet explained how you would protect people with pre-existing conditions or laid out that plan.
Well, look, we currently have laws and regulations in place right now that protect people with pre-existing conditions. We want to keep those regulations in place, but we also want to make the health insurance marketplace function a little bit better. Now, what Governor Walz just said is actually not true. A lot of what happened, and the reason that Obamacare was crushing under its own weight, is that a lot of young and healthy people were leaving the exchanges. Donald Trump actually helped address that problem, and he did so in a way that preserved people's access to coverage who had pre-existing conditions. But again, something that these guys do is they make a lot of claims about if Donald Trump becomes president, all of these terrible consequences are going to ensue. But in reality, Donald Trump was president. Inflation was low. Take-home pay was higher. And he saved the very program from a Democratic administration that was collapsing and would have collapsed absent his leadership. He did his job, which is govern in a bipartisan way and get results, not just complain about problems, but actually solve them.
Governor, did enrollment under the Affordable Care Act go up under the Trump administration?
It's higher now that we've seen it go up. Look, people are using it. The system works. And the question about this of young people or whatever, that's the individual mandate piece of this. And Republicans fought tooth and nail saying, well, Americans should be free to do this. Well, then what happens is... So you think the
individual mandate's a good idea?
I think the idea of making sure the risk pool is broad enough to cover everyone, that's the only way insurance works. When it doesn't, it collapses. You are asking pre-ACA where we get people out. Look, people know that they need to be on health care. People expect it to be there. And when we are able to make it, and we are making it this way, when we incentivize people to be in the market, when we help people who might not be able to afford it get there, and we make sure then when you get sick and old, it's there for you. Because I heard people say, well, I don't want to buy into Medicare or whatever. Good luck buying health care once you get past 70. So look, the ACA works. We can continue to do better. Kamala Harris did that. The way she made everything better was negotiating those 10 drugs on Medicare for the first time in American history.
Thank you. Margaret,
can I address that?
I apologize. We're out of time. We have a number of subjects to discuss. Margaret.
Let's talk about families in America. There is a child care crisis in this country, and
another socialist question. Are you going to give away shit for free to people who need child care? Watch. Every question, bro.
The United States is one of the very few developed countries in the world without a national paid leave program for new parents. Governor Walz.
That was a good question.
You said that if Democrats win both the White House and Congress, this is a day one priority for you. How long should employers be required to pay workers while they are home taking care of their newborns? You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, that's negotiable, and that's what Congress worked. But here's what the deal is. Americans sitting out there right now, you may work for a big company. Look, we're home in Minnesota to some of the largest Fortune 500 companies. Kamala Harris knows that in California. Those companies provide paid family and medical leave. One is, I think they're moral and they think it's a good thing, but it also keeps their employees healthy. We in Minnesota passed a paid family and medical leave. You have a child, and I had to go back to work 5 days after my kids were born. This allows you to stay home a certain amount of time. What we know is that gets the child off to a better start. The family works better. They stay in their employers. We get more consistency in that. So Kamala Harris has made it a priority. We implemented it in Minnesota, and we see growth. That's how you become a pro-business state. But the negotiations on it, and here's the issue. Those big companies are able to offer it. Those of you out there who don't have it, just imagine what happens if you get cancer. or your child gets sick. We know what happens. You end up staying home. In some cases, that means no paycheck because you've got no protection on that. This is the case of an economy that Donald Trump has set for the wealthiest amongst us. He's willing to give those tax breaks to the wealthiest. He's willing to say, bust those unions up, do whatever. What we're saying is the economy works best when it works for all of us. And so a paid family medical leave program, and I will tell you, go to the families or go to the businesses and ask them. As far as childcare on this, you have to take it at both the supply and the demand side. You can't expect the most important people in our lives to take either our children or our parents to get paid the least amount of money. And we have to make it easier for folks to be able to get into that business and then to make sure that folks are able to pay for that. We were able to do it in Minnesota, and I'm still telling you this. We were listed as the best state. We're still in crisis on this. A federal program of paid family and medical leave and help with this will enhance our workforce, enhance our families, and make it easier to have the children that you want.
Governor, your time is up. Senator, do you support a national paid leave program? And if so, for how long should employers be mandated to pay their employees while they are home taking care of their newborn? You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, first of all, Margaret, a number of my Republican colleagues and some Democrats, too, have worked on this issue. And I think there is a bipartisan solution here because a lot of us care about this issue. I mean, look, I speak from this very personally because I'm married to a beautiful woman who is an incredible mother to our 3 beautiful kids, but is also a very, very brilliant corporate litigator. And I'm so proud of her. But being a working mom, even for somebody with all of the advantages of my wife, is extraordinarily difficult. And it's not just difficult from a policy perspective. She actually had access to paid family leave because she worked for a bigger company. But the cultural pressure on young families and especially young women, I think makes it really hard for people to choose the family model they want. A lot of young women would like to go back to work immediately. Some would like to spend a little time home with the kids. Some would like to spend longer at home with the kids. We should have a family care model that makes choice possible. And I think this is a very important substantive difference between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris's approach. I mean, look, if you look at the federal programs that we have that support paid family leave right now, the Community Development Block Grant, and there's another block grant program that spends a lot of money from the federal government. These programs only go to one kind of childcare model. Let's say you'd like your church maybe to help you out with childcare. Maybe you live in a rural area or an urban area and you'd like to get together with families in your neighborhood to provide childcare in the way that makes the most sense. You don't get access to any of these federal monies. We want to promote choice in how we deliver family care and how we promote childcare because, look, it is unacceptable. And, you know, of course, Tim and I have been on the campaign trail a lot. And one of the biggest complaints I hear from young families is people who feel like they don't have options, like they're choosing between going to work or taking care for their kids. That is an incredible burden to put on American families. We're the only country that does it. I think we could do a heck of a lot better.
Senator, thank you. You have also said, Senator Vance.
Neither one of them answered the question, though. Neither one of
them. Many things about the American family. The Federal Reserve says parents will spend nearly as much on childcare as they do on housing each month. So I want to get your thoughts on this. President Trump recently said, as much as childcare.
Every question is what President Trump said. Why do they never question what Kamala has done?
Right.
They might have had 1 or 2 questions, if I'm not mistaken. But
Trump, though.
It seems like every other question is, well, President Trump did this. He's an asshole. Tell us why he's an asshole. Tim Walz? Oh, no, you, Senator. Tell us why he's not an asshole. It's like every question, man.
Right.
Talked about as being expensive. It's relatively speaking not very expensive compared to the kinds of numbers we'll be taking in. Is President Trump committed to the $5,000 per child tax credit that you have described? You have 1 minute.
Well, what President Trump said, Margaret, I just want to defend my running mate here a little bit, is that we're going to be taking in a lot of money by penalizing companies for shipping jobs overseas and penalizing countries who employ slave laborers and then ship their products back into our country and undercut the wages of American workers. It's the heart of the Donald Trump economic plan. Cut taxes for American workers and American families. Cut taxes for businesses that are hiring and building companies in the United States of America, but penalize companies and countries that are shipping jobs overseas. That's the heart of the economic proposal. And I think what President Trump is saying is that when we bring in this additional revenue with higher economic growth, we're going to be able to provide paid family leave, child care options that are viable and workable for a lot of American families.
Can you clarify how that will solve the child care shortage?
Well, because as Tim said, a lot of the child care shortage is we just don't have enough resources going into the multiple people who could be providing family care options. And we're going to have to, unfortunately, look, we're going to have to spend more money. We're going to have to induce more people to want to provide child care options for American families, because the reason it's so expensive right now is because you've got way too few people providing this very essential service.
Thank you, Senator. Governor Walz, your ticket also has some child care tax.
I'll tell you what, in Democrat areas, especially liberal areas, the regulations are so high for people who want to start childcare businesses. Some people just don't deal with it altogether because it's a headache,
right?
Or it can be a headache. Like, especially if you want to start up a brand new business. Let's say you wanted to do it in DC. There's a ton of obstacles that are already in your way before you even, try to rent a place out that you may want to use.
Right. You got to be look a certain way. You have a certain amount of windows and all that crap.
And then you've got minimum wage, which is crazy. It'll be $18.50 an hour by next June in DC.
Man.
So, I mean, you got to pay people through the roof. Your rent is through the roof. And then you got high regulations. Open a child care center for what?
But you're going to charge rates.
Yeah, I mean, well, hey.
Do you think Congress will agree to the $6,000 credit for newborns and $3,000 credit for children over the age of 6, as your campaign has promised? Is that realistic?
Well, if these members of Congress are listening to anybody, I can tell you, and this is the biggest issue. Everybody listening tonight knows. I mean, I'm sure they were shocked to hear it's not that expensive. And let's be clear, whether it's $5,000 or $6,000, that pays you about 3 or 4 months. Let's be clear of where we're at on this. It's because we got out of an imbalance on this. We thought we were going to get by not paying people. I don't think Senator Vance and I are that far apart. I'm not opposed to what he's talking about on options. We've done scholarships types of things. I think we need to be open to making the case. But the issue here is, the question you asked is, you're not going to pay for it with these tariffs. That's just adding another $4,000 on the family and taking less. So not only do they not get the money to pay for that, they're $4,000 in the hole. That's Wharton School. That's his alma mater. And so I think the issue here is, if those members of Congress, I can't believe they're not. When I go to businesses, sure, they'll talk about taxes sometime, but they will lead with childcare and they will lead with housing, because we know the problem is, especially in a state like Minnesota, we need more workers because our economy is growing, but we need the workforce.
Governor, thank you. We need to move on. Nora?
Let's talk about the state of democracy, the top issue for Americans after the economy and inflation. After the 2020 election, President Trump's campaign and others filed 62 lawsuits contesting the results. Judges, including those appointed by President Trump and other Republican presidents, looked at the evidence and said there was no widespread fraud. The governors of every state in the nation, Republicans and Democrats, certified the 2020 election results and sent a legal slate of electors to Congress for January 6th. Senator Vance, you have said you would not have certified the last presidential election and would have asked the states to submit alternative electors. That has been called unconstitutional and illegal. Would you again seek to challenge this year's election results, even if every governor certifies the results? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, Nora, first of all, I think that we're focused on the future. We need to figure out how to solve the inflation crisis caused by Kamala Harris's policies, make housing affordable, make groceries affordable, and that's what we're focused on. But I want to answer your question because you did ask it. Look, what President Trump has said is that there were problems in 2020, and my own belief is that we should fight about those issues, debate those issues peacefully in the public square, and that's all I've said, and that's all that Donald Trump has said. Remember, he said that on January the 6th, the protesters ought to protest peacefully. And on January the 20th, what happened? Joe Biden became the president. Donald Trump left the White House. And now, of course, unfortunately, we have all of the negative policies that have come from the Harris-Biden administration. I believe that we actually do have a threat to democracy in this country, but unfortunately, it's not the threat to democracy that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz want to talk about. It is the threat of censorship. It's Americans casting aside lifelong friendships because of disagreements over politics. It's big technology companies silencing their fellow citizens. And it's Kamala Harris saying that rather than debate and persuade her fellow Americans, she'd like to censor people who engage in misinformation. I think that's a much bigger threat to democracy than anything that we've seen in this country in the last 4 years, in the last 40 years. Now, I'm really proud, especially given that I was raised by two lifelong blue-collar Democrats, to have the endorsement of Bobby Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, lifelong leaders in the Democratic coalition. And of course, they don't agree with me and Donald Trump on every issue. We don't have to agree on every issue, but we're united behind a basic American First Amendment principle that we ought to debate our differences. We ought to argue about them. We ought to try to persuade our fellow Americans. Kamala Harris is engaged in censorship at an industrial scale. She did it during COVID. She's done it over a number of other issues. And that, to me, is a much bigger threat to democracy than what Donald Trump said when he said that protesters should peacefully protest on January the 6th.
Governor?
Well, I've enjoyed tonight's debate, and I think there was a lot of commonality here. And I'm sympathetic to misspeaking on things, and I think I might have with the senator.
Me too, man.
There's one though that this one is troubling to me, and I say that because I think we need to tell the story. Donald Trump refused to acknowledge this, and the fact is that I don't think we can be the frog in the pot and let the boiling water go up. He was very clear. I mean, he lost this election, and he said he didn't. 140 police officers were beaten at the Capitol that day. Some with the American flag, several later died. And it wasn't just in there.
That's a lie.
Minnesota,
Where's
gathered on the
fact
state
check?
Capitol grounds in St. Paul,
Fact check them.
marching to the governor's residence, and there may be casualties. The only person there was my son and his dog, who was rushed out crying by state police. That issue, and Mike Pence standing there as they were chanting, hang Mike Pence. Mike Pence made the right decision. So, Senator, it was adjudicated over and over and over. I worked with kids long enough to know, and I said as a football coach, sometimes you really want to win, but the democracy is bigger than winning an election. You shake hands, and then you try and do everything you can to help the other side win. That's what was at stake here. Now, the thing I'm most concerned about is the idea that imprisoning your political opponents, already laying the groundwork for people not accepting this. And a president's words matter. A president's words matter. People hear that. So I think this issue of settling our differences at the ballot box, shaking hands when we lose, being honest about it, but to deny what happened on January 6th, the first time in American history that a president or anyone tried to overturn a fair election.
That's a lie.
And a peaceful transfer. Right. And here we are 4 years later in the same boat. I will tell you this.
That's what comes
over. We need to shake hands this election, and the winner needs to be the winner. This has got to stop. It's tearing our country apart.
Margaret? Senator Vance, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, well, look, Tim, first of all, it's really rich for Democratic leaders to say that Donald Trump is a unique threat to democracy when he peacefully gave over power on January the 20th, as we have done for 250 years in this country. We are going to shake hands after this debate and after this election. And of course, I hope that we win, and I think we're going to win. But if Tim Walz is the next vice president, he'll have my prayers, he'll have my best wishes, and he'll have my help whenever he wants it. But we have to remember that for years in this country, Democrats protested the results of elections. Hillary Clinton in 2016 said that Donald Trump had the election stolen by Vladimir Putin because the Russians bought like $500,000 worth of Facebook ads. This has been going on for a long time. And if we want to say that we need to respect the results of the election, I'm on board. But if we want to say, as Tim Walz is saying, that this is just a problem that Republicans have had, I don't buy that.
Governor.
January 6th was not Facebook ads. And I think a revisionist history on this. Look, I don't understand how we got to this point. But the issue was that happened. Donald Trump can do it. And all of us say there's no place for this. It has massive repercussions. This idea that there's censorship to stop people from threatening to kill someone, threatening to do something, that's not censorship. Censorship is book banning. We've seen that. We've seen that brought up. I just think for everyone tonight, and I'm going to thank Senator Vance, I think this is the conversation they want to hear. And I think there's a lot of agreement, but this is one that we are miles apart on. This was a threat to our democracy in a way that we had not seen. And it manifested itself because of Donald Trump's inability to say. He is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
It's a damning non-answer for you to not talk about censorship. Obviously, Donald Trump and I think that there were problems in 2020. We've talked about it. I'm happy to talk about it further. But you guys attack us for not believing in democracy. The most sacred right under the United States democracy is the First Amendment. You yourself have said there's no First Amendment right to misinformation. Kamala Harris wants to use the power of government and big tech to silence people from speaking their minds. That is a threat to democracy that will long outlive this present political moment. I would like Democrats and Republicans to both reject censorship. Let's persuade one another. Let's argue about ideas, and then let's come together afterwards.
You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That's the test. That's the Supreme Court test.
Tim, fire in a crowded theater. You guys wanted to kick people off of Facebook for saying that toddlers shouldn't wear masks.
Senator, the governor does have the floor.
Fire in a crowded theater. That is criticizing the policies of the government, which is the right of every American.
Senator, the governor does have the floor for 1 minute to respond to you.
Yeah. Well, I don't run Facebook. What I do know is I see a candidate out there who refused, and now again, and this I'm pretty shocked by this. He lost the election. This is not a debate. It's not anything.
Now they're talking about shit that don't even matter. This doesn't even matter, bro.
Anywhere other than in Donald Trump's world. Because look, when Mike Pence made that decision to certify that election, that's why Mike Pence isn't on this stage. What I'm concerned about is, where is the firewall with Donald Trump? Where is the firewall if he knows he could do anything, including taking an election, and his vice president's not going to stand to it? That's what we're asking you, America. Will you stand up? Will you keep your oath of office, even if the president doesn't? And I think Kamala Harris would agree. She wouldn't have picked me if she didn't think I would do that, because of course that's what we would do. So America, I think you've got a really clear choice on this election of who's going to honor that democracy and who's going to honor Donald Trump.
Governor, your time is up. Thank you, gentlemen. We will be right back with both of our candidates. The CBS News vice presidential debate continues.
The one good thing about so far is that the moderators are kind of pushing back a little bit sometimes, which I'm kind of glad on, even though they're still kind of biased. And I'm glad that JD Vance is also pushing back on the questions that they ask him. Like, you know what I mean? There's like he doesn't let him run. He's not letting him run away from the questions.
Nah, he's not, and he's got an answer for everything. Like, now I see why Trump picked this dude.
Exactly.
To be honest with you, he's been flawless the entire night.
Bruh, he's flowing on his dome, man.
Young and vibrant and shining.
You said he's doing what? Messi?
Huh?
What's he doing?
Flowing on his dome, man.
I got that
Come on, man. Come on, bro. You got to stop this, man. You got to stop this, bro.
Man. This has been a great debate so far. That's all I can say, man.
It's been good. I mean, honestly, Tim Walz is not as dumb as I thought he was. I mean, his answers are terrible, but
right.
I mean, he could fool the average American. He definitely can fool the average American.
Sure. I agree.
Yeah.
And no one's fact checking this dude, man, at all.
You said what?
No one's fact checking this dude at all. Like,
they fact check, and I like Vance because Vance wasn't playing with them. Vance was like, hold up, you guys fact checked me several times. You weren't supposed to do it. Then they stopped fact checking him. They never fact checked Walz, and he's already said several things that are not true.
And Vance is fact checking him on the spot too. He's like, hold on, let me respond to that. He fact checks him right there, like the whole passport thing where you can go on your app and get certified as an illegal alien, as a legal migrant. I was like, come on, man, really?
But let's not forget about who put that bill in place to protect the squatters, the illegals, to protect the squatters from snatching your house up.
For sure. Hey, real quick, I'll be right back, fellas.
Gotcha. And I don't know how people don't understand that illegal immigration doesn't rise inflation. I mean, they come with their children, et cetera, et cetera. So I mean, they go to your hospitals. Which, say for instance, if I have a loved one who needs medical attention, and I can rush them to the hospital, and the hospital is taken by an illegal immigrant, it's like, you know. And here's the thing, right? I know I guess doctors have the code of ethics or whatever. So say for instance, I have a sick person, I'm rushed to the hospital, and at the same time, illegal immigrant gets there who needs to go to the hospital. Who do you choose? Like, who's the doctor choose? The American or the illegal immigrant?
It depends who's in office.
That's wow. That's crazy.
Ain't that something, man?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's wild. I mean, Tim Walz has definitely dodged a lot of questions, and you can tell each question that got him frustrated, damn near all of them, because he turns like Mezzi King Khufu was saying, he turns crazy red.
Yeah. Tim Walz. He's kind of just floating along, you know. He got that governor in it.
Hold on, I think we're back. Hold on.
Oh, okay.
Go back a little bit. All right, hold on. Here we go.
Welcome back to the CBS News Vice Presidential Debate. It is now time for the closing statement. Senator Vance won the virtual coin toss and elected to go last. So, Governor Walz, you are first. You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you, Senator Vance. Thank you to CBS News. And most importantly, thank you to all of you. If you're still up and the folks who miss Dancing with Our Stars, I appreciate it. But look, the support of the democracy matters. It matters that you're here. And I'm as surprised as anybody of this coalition that Kamala Harris has built, from Bernie Sanders to Dick Cheney to Taylor Swift, and a whole bunch of folks in between there. And they don't all agree on everything, but they are truly optimistic people. They believe in a positive future of this country, and one where our politics can be better than it is. And I have to tell you, that better than it is the sense of optimism that there can be an opportunity economy that works for everyone, not just to get by, but to get ahead. And the idea that freedom really means something, not the freedom of government to be in your bedroom or exam room, but the freedom for you to make choices about yourself. Now, look, we all know who Donald Trump is. He's told us, and as Maya Angelou said, believe him when he told you that. His first inaugural address talked about American carnage, and then he spent 4 years trying to maybe do that. Senator Vance tonight made it clear he will stand with Donald Trump's agenda. He will continue to push down that road. Excuse me. Kamala Harris gives us a different option. Now, I'll have to tell you, I'm going to be careful about the quotes, but there's one that Senator Vance said that does resonate with me. He said, Donald Trump makes the people I care about afraid. A lot of America feels that way. We don't need to be afraid. Franklin Roosevelt was right. All we have to fear is fear itself. Kamala Harris is bringing us a new way forward. She's bringing us a politics of joy. She's bringing real solutions for the middle class, and she's centering you at the heart of that.
How can he say this shit with a straight face? I don't know how anybody can say this with a straight face.
It's got to be AI.
All the while asking everyone, join this movement, make your voices heard. Let's look for a new day where everybody gets that opportunity and everybody gets a chance to thrive. I humbly ask for your vote on November 5th for Kamala Harris.
Governor Walz, thank you. Senator Vance, your closing statement.
Well, I want to thank Governor Walz, you folks at CBS, and of course the American people for tuning in this evening. And one of the issues we didn't talk about was energy. And I remember when I was being raised by my grandmother, when she didn't have enough money to turn on the heat some nights because Ohio gets pretty cold at night and because money was often very tight. And I believe, as a person who wants to be your next vice president, that we are a rich and prosperous enough country where every American, whether they're rich or poor, ought to be able to turn on their heat in the middle of a cold winter night. That's gotten more difficult thanks to Kamala Harris's energy policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford a nice meal for your family. That's gotten harder because of Kamala Harris's policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford to buy a house. You ought to be able to live in safe neighborhoods. You ought to not have your communities flooded with fentanyl. And that too has gotten harder with Kamala because of Kamala Harris's policies. Now, I've been in politics long enough to do what Kamala Harris does when she stands before the American people and says that on day one, she's going to work on all these challenges I just listed. She's been the vice president for 3.5 years. Day one was 1,400 days ago, and her policies have made these problems worse. Now, I believe that we have the most beautiful country in the world. I meet people on the campaign trail who can't afford food, but have the grace and generosity to ask me how I'm doing and to tell me they're praying for my family. What that has taught me is that we have the greatest country, the most beautiful country, the most incredible people anywhere in the world. But they're not going to be able to achieve their full dreams with the broken leadership that we have in Washington. They're not going to be able to live their American dream if we do the same thing that we've been doing for the last 3.5 years. We need change. We need a new direction. We need a president who has already done this once before and did it well. Please vote for Donald Trump. And whether you vote for me or vote for Tim Walz, I just want to say I'm so proud to be doing this, and I'm rooting for you. God bless you, and good night.
Senator Vance, thank you.
Holiday season.
And thank you both for participating in the only vice presidential debate of this election cycle. I'm Margaret Brennan.
And I'm Nora O'Donnell. And a reminder, there are just 35 days until Election Day. Please get out and vote. And for all of us here at CBS News, thank you and good night.
All right, so there we have it.
So let me, can I say something real quick?
Yes, sir. You have the floor.
So let's just say we never saw Kamala Harris and President Trump debate before, right?
Okay.
We would have just looked at this debate as it stands right now, as this is the only debate that we've seen. We would have just judged this debate. We could actually see that this would be a more presidential side, the Republican side, than the Democratic side. They have more solutions because they actually answered the question and gave more practical solutions to the questions, versus the other guy who really didn't have, he danced around, trying to, basically blame the other side for whatever he did and not answer the questions.
Every single day, especially when he first started off, everything was Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump.
Right.
Which I get it.
But we need solutions to what the fuck you're gonna do.
I mean, but he's running against Donald Trump, so I get it. And I would be a liar if I didn't also observe that JD Vance did the same thing. However, in JD Vance's defense, she is literally the sitting vice president. So all of the things that when every time Tim Walz started talking about change and what they want to do, like if I'm JD Vance, I'm gonna go right back to that every time. Well, you're in office right now.
Right. Exactly.
You haven't done it. So, I mean, that's the severe disadvantage that he had coming into this debate. And I will say this, even though I can't stand him or Kamala Harris, I will say he did a good job considering
the bar
what he was working with. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I mean, hey, he's very articulate in what he said. You know what I mean? That's why I give him that. So, you know what I mean? So,
yeah, I mean, he did the best he could do, but like at the end of the day, bro, the results are the results, the facts are the facts, and the fact is, and the bottom line is, Kamala Harris is currently probably in charge. I mean, Joe Biden literally just said it the other day in an interview. He said he delegates his authority to her.
Yeah,
he literally said that.
And if that's the case, we're.
No, I mean, hence, look what's going on in the world right now. We're in the middle of World War III, right? All it's going to take at this point is for China to move in on Taiwan, and we're done. It's a royal flush.
Well, no. Actually, here's what's going to start World War III, and I don't think people are paying attention to it, right? We already have American soldiers in Israel right now.
Right.
All it takes is one missile from Iran or some mishap. They hit one American soldier, just one. And then we have World War III. We have boots on the ground. And then you have World War III. Because, I mean, we're not just going to invade Iran. And China's just going to stand back, or Russia's just going to stand back and like, fuck it.
Well, what I'm saying is we're exposed at this point. You can't fight Iran here, Russia here by proxy with Ukraine.
Right.
And then if China's like, you know what the hell with it? Let's go ahead and take Taiwan while we at it.
And they'll crush us.
They take Taiwan. We are now weak. We are now broken, and we spent trillions of dollars already fighting these proxy wars.
And let's not forget the wild card, North Korea.
Yep. Yep.
Get the wild card.
I mean, this is a joke at this point. The 4 years that Trump spent being diplomatic with these people, trying to back them off and be easy, has been wasted.
He met the North Korean president after what 40, 50 fucking years.
Right.
Man, he wasn't trying to kill us at all.
And he called him Rocket Man, Little Rocket Man.
He was cool with the nigga, man. Why would you not? Here's the thing, right? If you want to, you talk about diplomatic relations, right? If you're ever to be show diplomatic relations with the leaders of other countries, and they're not trying to kill you, they're all trying to, ease tensions a little bit. Why would you not try to foster that? You know what I mean? And you're telling everybody Russia's this, North Korea's that. I mean, you're not making the world look safer.
It's speaking of that. I want to talk about one thing. It's in my notes here. JD Vance's answer to the whole Israel-Hamas conflict, in my opinion, was golden. Right? Because one mistake that I think, a major mistake that the left or that Kamala and Walz are going to make, and that they're making, is that they're going to come off as too pro-Israel, right? And everybody knows the base of the Democratic Party at this point is damn near anti-Israel.
Yeah, that's true.
And they're coming off as pro-Israel.
Yeah,
Israel. Like, you have to be pro-Israel because, I mean, it just is what it is. I mean, Epstein's framing people, so you gotta. Unfortunately, you gotta be pro-Israel, right? I mean, hey, Israel did the work, bro. They did the work.
Yeah. I mean, the only reason we're pro-Israel is because we have a strategic allies with us.
But they also are strategic. Like, their intelligence is world class. I'm telling you, they've got dirt on everybody.
Exactly. That's why we're so friendly with Israel.
That's why they had to get rid of Epstein, because Epstein was. They say he was a Mossad agent. In all those years, he was just getting dirt on people.
He got that info.
So, I mean, but that's a whole nother conversation. Regardless, though, they're coming off as too pro-Israel. And I like what J.D. Vance said. J.D. Vance said, hey, whatever beef Israel's got, they have the right to defend themselves. Let them handle their beef. If shit gets crazy, we'll help them out. But they need to handle their own beef. Basically is what he said.
We ain't got nothing to do with that.
We ain't got nothing to do with what y'all got going on with Iran.
Right.
That was his stance.
Handle that.
And I like it because that sticks to the America First brand.
Yeah.
Right.
And he set Trump and himself apart from your establishment rhinos, Republican in name only, that are pro-war in Ukraine and are pro-fighting a war with Iran. So I thought he did a great job. I mean, I thought he was flawless, man. I don't know. JP, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I'm riding with JD Vance, man. I mean, no question. He got the grit, he got the smarts, but most importantly, he got action, man. And looking at Kamala, she just got speeches, and honestly, it ain't even good one. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Nah, but he's fighting for small town America. So he gets it. He gets it, and not any fancy speeches all the time. He's just giving it to you, rugged and raw. Just how it should be.
Facts. So Mr. Kufu, let me ask you this: do you think that this debate moves the needle either way when it comes to the election next month?
I think so. So the reason why I say it moves the debate, if Trump, it's kind of like JD Vance is almost like the mouthpiece with Trump. It's kind of like, I guess, funneling what Trump is going to do through JD Vance. So it's kind of like you can understand what JD Vance is talking about. I guess for those who don't really like Trump, you can understand what JD Vance is going about, what Trump is trying to portray in his presidency. So I think it swayed the needle just a little bit, because if you listen to the other guy's answer, just like, dude, you didn't answer the question, you just blame the other guy. So I didn't really get any policy answers from that guy at all. But one thing I was going to say, the guys, you can tell how much of a liberal this guy is. So one of the things he was most passionate about was abortion. Out of all the things he spoke about, it wasn't immigration. It wasn't, healthcare, because he's I guess his state's the best healthcare in the country. But
if that's what you want to call it, like I wouldn't call it the best healthcare. I mean, they've got the best healthcare cartel.
Exactly, but abortion, and he was very passionate about abortion. And a lot of liberals are very passionate about abortion, so you might want to pay attention to that.
Yeah, because it's. I mean, that issue is going to touch the hearts of women, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So women are going to see that and feel empowered. That's why I really don't think that this debate moves the needle. Well, it doesn't do anything for Harris and Walz.
Right.
Number one, because I mean, JD Vance was flawless. I mean, and the polls already have Trump winning like 291 to like 240 something.
In the popular poll too, yeah.
So I mean, when it comes to, I went over this earlier. I'm not sure if you guys saw it, but the Democratic Party is losing demographics that they never had to worry about before. They're losing the unions. They've completely lost out on the working man, like tradesmen, people like that. And the Hispanic vote is now at 40% for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
So basically, she's down almost triple the points.
But about to be more because of the workers' strike today.
Right. And that's another issue that this administration just refuses to address. Now you got the whole East Coast and half of the southern border, ready to shut down. Did they shut down today?
Yeah, they shut down. Hey, they were fighting. They were fighting. These motherfuckers was fighting, man. Like,
I don't know. And this is my issue with black folks, right? How do you defend this?
Who raised you people?
You've got 65% of the docks in the country shut down.
Yeah.
World war that started today.
Yeah.
In a hurricane.
Yeah.
Of course, you can't blame the hurricane on them. But at the same time, you niggas knew it was coming.
You can't make this shit up, man.
You knew it was coming.
You cannot make this shit up. I'm telling you. If this was a fall of an empire, this would be it.
Bro, the hurricane's going on. Kamala's in Vegas.
Oh, he's in Vegas?
Fundraising. As people are dying. It's news. People are dying. North Carolina, Georgia's underwater. She's in Vegas.
Emergency.
Fundraising. Biden's in Rehoboth Beach, chilling at the beach house. And where's Trump? Trump is in Georgia and in North Carolina with oil tankers and cartons and cartons and cartons of supplies.
Wow.
You can't make, and the niggas still wanted to argue with me on Facebook earlier. I couldn't believe it.
You can't make this shit up.
Believe that, man.
And let me say, I mean, and it's one argument, and I wanted him to call in tonight. My man, Too Tall, that's my man. But we had a back and forth on Facebook. And he made some good points, and I made some good points. I think I made better points, of course. Yeah. But he kind of ended it with like Vance saying, well, your boy Vance said that it was racist for black farmers to get whatever black farmers are supposed to get. I want this to be known to people, and I want people to get this clear. I don't give a shit about racial politics at this point, especially when it comes to the black community. Why? I'm not saying it to be a jerk. I'm not saying it to be mean. I'm saying it because I know math and I understand logic and I move with reasoning. Bruh, it's over. Nobody in America gives a shit about what the black community is going through. Number one, we put ourselves in that position. Number two, everybody's fucked up at this point. So nobody wants to hear about your whining and crying over there when they've got issues too. Nobody cares, bro. At this point, it's about saving whatever country that we have left.
Right.
Like, to be honest with you, like, read the room, bro. Nobody gives a shit about reparations at this point. It's not going to happen. The most liberal state in the country that's all Democrat just screwed you over on reparations. If California screwed you over on reparations, just understand you're not reading the room if you're still asking for this shit. The country is on the brink of collapse. And you niggas think they're going to turn around and hand a bunch of people with broken families $7 trillion?
Let me bring this home. They just gave what $2 billion extra to put motherfuckers overseas that ain't even over here, and you think they gonna give you money? Like,
right? You think they're gonna hand us $7 trillion?
Get the fuck
You
out.
niggas are crazy. Then the point came, well, what's Trump ever? Trump doesn't have any black policy or whatever. The nigga literally came up with the platinum plan and had $500 billion for you niggas. And you chose the other side at over 90%. The other side that offered you nothing and gave you nothing. And you're still going to give them 80-something% of your vote. This is why nobody takes us seriously.
If you don't vote for me, you ain't black.
This is why nobody takes us seriously. You give a party that literally gives you their ass to kiss every time 80 to 90% of your vote.
One more thing, though.
Go ahead.
One more thing, though. The first, it was one of the things he ran on. He said the first fucking 100 days that as soon as he gets in the presidency, he's going to do something for black people. The first fucking 100 days. Where was that at? That's all I got to say.
He didn't do anything. Somebody, ARC says, cool story, bro. And he says, ain't no one doing shit on either side. Okay. And look, I'll put the link in the description if you want to call in and give your 2 cents. As a matter of fact,
here's the problem with that, right? When you say he's not doing shit on either side, the thing is he's not doing shit for black, white, green, black. He's doing shit for as an American. Period. That's the federal government's role in these things. To do things for Americans, not for this. I mean, I'm not saying they can't, but I'm saying overall, what they're supposed to be doing is something for Americans.
Well, see, that's the thing. Our ARC probably black, and most of them want to deny that they American.
I'm not saying like you can't pass certain laws and everything, but I'm just saying for economic reasons. I'm just saying it's for.
That's how it's supposed to be.
Right, but at the same time, they literally, the Biden administration made an executive order for Asian Americans, and then the Congress passed a bill for Asian Americans.
Under whose presidency? That's all I can say.
So, they can do what they want to do, but the reason they did it for Asians is because they respect Asians. Right. They do not respect you because you give them your vote. You blindly give them your vote. That's why, call me whatever you want. I have no desire to participate in what black culture does politically. I don't care. I don't want to do anything you niggas do. At this point in my life, I'm 40 years old. I got 4 children. I'm operating like a good American. I'm going to do what's best for the country.
I agree.
Now, if America wants to hand every nigga $7 trillion, I'll take my check. I'm FBA on both sides of my family. You can trace my shit back all the way to the 1700s. But in hindsight, it's ridiculous to even think that that's what they're going to do at this point. Now in hindsight, in theory, yes, the right thing to do is fix your wrongs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
In a perfect world.
But in practice, it's not going to happen because there are too many people that have too many gripes, and the country is too
in shambles.
In shambles at this point to even do anything. And then we've self-sabotaged ourselves politically so bad that there's no urgency to help us.
Not at all. We gave the vote away. That's the problem. We just gave the shit here, man.
Like the shit that people won't say out loud or on camera is that nobody respects what niggas do because of how we move. But we're just so entitled and used to being the victim and everybody kissing our ass because we're victims. We don't see it. But I'm telling you what people won't say out loud. They're not going to give you niggas anything. There's people from third world countries over here. There's Africans from all black countries that would rather come over here and deal with the quote unquote racism than deal with the dictators in Africa. Nigga, racist, bro. I could go on and on about this all day.
It's true.
You got people from a 95% black continent that would give their right arm to get the hell off that black ass continent.
Man, that says a lot.
The opportunities is more opportunities over here.
And they'll deal. You ask a Nigerian nigga if he cares about some hillbilly that lives 300 miles away, some toothless hillbilly wearing a fucking sheet hood. You think, who cares about that?
Yeah, there's worse shit over there than that.
They come to get them benefits.
There's more opportunities, like I said.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the whole racism thing, that's something with that was, I ain't gonna get into it. We've done a show on it already. I think I might have to do another one, but you know, the communists pretty much.
At this point, we gotta put racism aside at this point, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's stupid, bro.
Yeah, I mean, we can deal with that at another time, but at this point, we got a whole bunch of other shit to deal with. It's just like, dude, I mean, it's kind of inconsequential at this point.
It is, especially when it's not really a big. You can't cry racism when every day in majority black areas, the black people are killing the black people. You cannot cry racism. Every now and then, a white dude kills a black dude. It makes national news. Niggas get to cry and march. But every single day, 5-6 times a day, in every city, there's a nigga killing another nigga.
Yeah, it's happening right now.
Right now.
Right now.
And one more thing, right? So, like you said, we're kind of on the precipice of World War III at this point, right? So, the thing about being an American, like if China or Russia, for that matter, since they were off the coast of Florida a few months ago, they wanted to invade America. They're not really going to care if you're a black, white, this, that. If you're an American, I'm going to kill your ass, you. They don't really give a fuck. They're not indiscriminate at that point.
You know what the funny part is? I don't even think that the Chinese and the Russians necessarily want to do that, but it's like
they will.
Like it's so sweet, we kind of got to do it.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like it's so sweet at this point. They got to do it. It's like,
why not?
Why not? We could just take it. Like,
and they've gained so much influence, and I would say the influence ground. You know,
for sure,
over the world is like you got almost just much influence as the United States at this point, if not more. So why not take advantage? Just you basically been giving it to.
It's been given to them on a platter,
right? Why not take advantage? I mean, you get to invade another country, take your land back, take your supposed land back. You get to make your new currency, hopefully cripple the other person's currency. Why not take advantage?
I mean, bro, Putin endorsed Kamala Harris for president.
I would too. Bruh, you giving me so much.
I be on the internet. I be having to stop myself because I be really typing shit out and arguing with black folks back and forth. Like, I'm wasting my time because it's like, you niggas really think this is about you. It ain't about you.
Think about it.
They always want it about them.
If I'm running the country and if I need money and you telling me I'm going to stop my pipeline and help you then build your own pipeline and keep money flowing in for you so you can keep a war going. I'm like, you're the best. You're the godson of my country. You're helping me make money.
Right.
Like, bro, why would I not want to see you in office another 4 fucking years? I could take over what I want in 2. And
we definitely gotta watch the F-bombs, bro. We gotta watch the F-bombs.
I didn't say that. I didn't curse.
You just dropped the F-bomb. I did earlier too, though. But we gotta. I'm telling you, YouTube be like, be trying to take the video. I'm telling you, YouTube is a whole different.
Yeah, it's different now.
Why would I have her back in the next 4 years? If I can take whatever I need in 2 years and have the last 2 years to chill. You know what I mean? Why would I not take advantage of it?
I mean, they're literally just dog walking Ukraine.
Yeah. Really.
Watching us blow billions of dollars trying to fight them, knowing that they can't win the war.
It's impossible for them in the war.
You know why? Trump says he can end the Ukraine-Russia war today? Because he's going to tell Zelensky, you can't win the war.
Yeah,
So sit your bitch ass down.
Yeah, stop that there.
And you might as well give the man what he wants at this point, because you're not going to win, and we're not going to keep giving you money.
He basically wants you to not join the NATO. So if he says, dude, we just won't have you join NATO, I mean, the war's probably over right then and there.
Everything stops right there.
I mean, NATO's a joke anyway. NATO's a serious joke at this point.
It is.
NATO is just the U.S. All we do is bleed our money into NATO. There's like 10, 13 other countries in NATO. We're one country, and we pay more than all of them combined.
We are NATO. We are NATO. That's why I look at it.
The greatest trick they ever played on the American citizens was thinking that we were independent of Great Britain in 1776. All Great Britain did was step back and say, damn, okay, they some bullies. We're going to make them our bullies.
Basically.
And to this day, we're still Great Britain. And through Great Britain, the rest of Western Europe, we're just their bullies.
Yeah, I don't think people understand how America was really started. We never really separated from Great Britain. The Revolutionary War is not what you think it was. You know what I mean? But whatever, another story.
So I mean, but bottom line is, we could go about this all day, but I got to take my ass to work in the morning.
Yeah, me too.
So JP, we'll start with you, man. I want to wrap this up.
Oh man, well, I appreciate the time, folks. It's been a long time coming. I don't know what the next one is, but I'm gonna be there.
All right, that's a bet for sure. For sure, probably, I don't know, maybe sometime.
Yeah, man. Well, let me just add this again. I enjoyed being on this show. I appreciate the time of being here. Thanks for inviting me.
No worries. Thank you for showing up. Mr. Mezzi, what you got for us?
Man, this was a great show, man. Great fucking show. Oh, my bad. Great. That's how great it was. Man.
Standing in the house.
Trump 2024. Go back and look at the whole debate again. Take your feelings out of the equation, and actually listen to the answers that JD Vance and Walz.
Man, I forgot, Bezzy. Let me say this. The mopeds, man. The moped, about 2,000 mopeds got deported the other week.
Oh, really? From where?
The mopeds in DC.
Okay, in DC.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, they actually deport them. They deport them all the time.
Yeah. Well,
I be seeing them all the time on 295. They be having a whole bunch of them, like all.
Yeah. So y'all,
like a tow truck. Yeah, they stay snatching them. Yeah.
So y'all can get back on making money with Uber again.
Right.
Hey, but that shows you the culture that I guess the illegal immigration they bring that culture inside our culture, and it doesn't really mesh too well, right, with our laws. So that kind of shows you that illegal immigration is kind of out of control. Like I said, so I can watch the video, take your emotions out of the equation, and listen to the answers that they both give. You'd be kind of surprised who gave the answers to the questions versus who's just talking.
No, that's a fact. That's a fact, man. I mean, shit. I mean, I've said all I had to say, man. Shout out to JD Vance, man.
I like that dude, man.
Trump 2024, we out of here.
Look at my African American over here. Look at him. Are you the greatest? You know what I'm talking about?
One more time for JD Vance, man.
They're eating the dogs. Cats eat the cat. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Eat the cat. Eat the cat. They're eating the cats. They're eating the dogs. Eat the cat. 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 They're eating the dogs. They're eating. Eat the cat.
All right, we out of here.